Hey, how's everybody going? Yeah, I figured I'll get on tonight so y'all can see the latest updates. At least you can get that in the weather going on right now. Tomorrow's going to be a long day, and so is Monday and Tuesday.
And we started doing that last week, getting our team together with the mayor, making sure she was informed with the best advice and forecasting that we could find, and obviously working our public works, cleaning catch basins, encouraging residents to get prepared and to be ready to shelter in place. Obviously, that message has had to change a little bit from what we normally do, because we're talking not about maybe 72 hours for one storm. We're talking about the potential Thursday, Friday, people are going to be in their homes. And that's why we're really encouraging them to get everything done today, this evening, and to be prepared to shelter in place for several days potentially.
Fortunately, here in the Florida Keys, we're not expecting anything significant. We do have a tropical storm watch out from Cedar, rather from the Key West area up through the Middle Keys, and that is up to Craig Key. And right now, we do have a pretty gusty thunderstorm. One of the far outer, really not a band, but there's an arc of some showers and storms, very broken, coming right through Duck Key now, just north of Marathon. So some gusty winds, heavy rain there, and that'll move on out. It's moving west and southwest. Nothing imminent here in Key West. Not much of a change in the water either since yesterday. We've got about 1 to 2 footers, water temperature 89 degrees. We do have a nice east, at times southeast wind at about 15 miles an hour, taking an edge off this heat index today, which topped out at 109 degrees. Let me show you the cone. And here's what we're thinking as far as impacts and timing. Now, the cone shows Laura going to our south, right south of us, as far as longitude. Early tomorrow afternoon. That's about 200 miles south of us. I calculated that. Then it goes off to the northwest, west-northwest in the evening. So it's 200 miles away. Hurricane Center with their 5 a.m. Eastern update predicting that the tropical storm force winds, that's 39 miles an hour or higher, will extend northeastward at about 140 statute miles, 120 nautical miles. So if you do that, right now, it doesn't seem likely that we'll have sustained tropical storm force winds. Thus, that's why the Hurricane Center did not upgrade us from a tropical storm watch to a warning. But with that said, we're going to have squalls rolling in, rotating around and in around the northern periphery of Laura, and that could cause gusts over 40 miles an hour, some gusty winds, heavy rains. Maybe you have some water spouts out here, then it moves out, and it will be windy still on Tuesday behind it, but the impacts tomorrow will be primarily afternoon and evening, and we do have a coastal flood watch out at high tide. Water is already running a little higher than average, Mike Bettis, and it could run 1 to 2 feet higher on this side of the Keys, the south-facing side of the Keys.
Mike, I know we're expecting the impacts there to be relatively minimal. What about the local businesses, restaurants, hotels, those types of things? Are they shutting down at all? Will it be business as usual for them?
I think it's going to be pretty much business as usual. We went to a nice lunch spot just up the beach, and if they close tomorrow, it's just because it's a bad beach day, not because they're worried about the weather and the impact from Laura. So, look, they're trying to recoup. They were closed for several months. Nobody could come down into the Keys unless you're a property owner. So they're trying to keep things open as much as possible here in Key West and up and down the Keys.
Yeah, completely get it. Totally do, Mike. Hey, thanks so much, Mike, for the update, and we'll see how things play out for us there in the lower Keys. Right now looks okay. It really does. You've had much worse, that's for sure. Let's look at Laura right now. 60-mile-per-hour winds, west-northwest movement at 21 miles per hour. So it's moving right along pretty quickly here, folks. Won't take it any time to get out into the Gulf of Mexico. That likely to happen by early Tuesday morning and then strengthen all the way through the Gulf of Mexico, we think, because we have warm sea surface temperatures. We have relatively low wind shear environment, which hurricanes do not like. We also have an upper level high pressure, which will, in essence, allow the storm to maximize its intensity, we think. And so all the way through the Gulf, intensification could be intensifying right up into a landfall. Right now, the forecast by Wednesday evening is 105 mile per hour category 2. Could it be higher? If I were a betting man, I would say yes, because it seems like storms oftentimes overachieve once they get into the Gulf of Mexico. But here we go. By Tuesday, we already had Marco. Now in comes Laura. We're sitting right there by early Wednesday morning. Could come into maybe like a Morgan City. As of right now, that's the forecast. Right side of that is all storm surge, especially if Laura is a bigger hurricane, especially if Laura is an intenser hurricane. You could get even higher surge with Laura, maybe significantly higher surge, coastal Mississippi, coastal Louisiana, and then Alabama. Flash flooding is possible for us, especially near the core where some of the heaviest of rain will fall for us here. And then watch where it goes from here, coming inland and then likely hooking to the right, whereas Marco could hook west to the left. Laura could hook to the right. We think that the lower Mississippi River Valley could get hit hard with wind and rain, and then into the Ohio Valley with wind and rain. So even if you live in a place like a Memphis or a Paducah, Kentucky, or a Cincinnati, Ohio, these are all places where I would pay very close attention to this forecast. You take a look at the European model pumping out the rain here. There could be a maximized rain here in Mississippi and in Louisiana. I'd be concerned up all the way to Tupelo potentially and beyond. Some places could get.
How's everybody doing? What I'm going to do is, this is the live radar what they have right now. But I'm going to do a future model run on next commercial break. That way I can see what's going on with Nana, because they done up their miles per hour from 100 to 105. And I saw Nana earlier had 38, and then when I checked again, it had 43. So whatever that is I saw is definitely getting power. I just want to check it again and see if it's still coming in the Gulf or if it's going to head out to the Pacific. Happy Sunday to all of you. Is anybody here in Pensacola? Hi April, hi soccer, hi weather, how y'all doing? I'm going to live stream until they stay on all night. That way everybody has the latest updates on these storms for tonight. Tallahassee, Michaela. Okay. Yeah, that's where Sebastian Weather Channel's at, also Tallahassee. That was the first place all this was supposed to go. Venice, Florida. I bet you were worried for a while in the beginning, huh? What's up, Johnny? But this will stay on this all evening long, so you can get the latest tropical updates on everything. And when it comes for the tomorrow and the next day, I haven't decided if I'm going to do it on this channel or my main channel, because I'd like to really get into these diagrams and dissect these storms. And usually right when I'm in the middle of something, Weather Channel wants to get on to talk about COVID cane or something, so I'm not too fond of that. Homestead, Florida. Nice, Lily. A lot of Florida, huh? I think y'all going to be okay. Gulfport, Mississippi. How you doing, Beverly? Yeah, I bet, Michaela. I bet you was nervous. It's still going to change now because it's going lower over the islands, lower over Cuba. So that means that the impacts and the intensity is all going to change as soon as it comes out of those mountains. So whatever cones we have now, it will change, but it will get one final position when it comes out. That way we know exactly where it's going. Worst part is it's going out, if it goes out the bottom of Cuba, it has more time in the Gulf in the warm waters to get stronger. So Hurricane Ike, I hope so. I hope not. Hey, Yvonne. Yeah, I'm from New Orleans myself. Yeah, y'all gonna get some power outages and a lot of rain over there. Some crazy winds coming from Laura. You're gonna get crazy winds also coming from Marco. Not as crazy as Laura, though. Hey, Harrison, what's up, buddy? How you doing, man? I just figure I'll stay on so people can get live updates for this evening. It ain't gonna be on like all night, but it'll be on for a while.
course for back-to-back landfalls along the Gulf Coast. We lay out the potential for the impacts and when these two systems will roar ashore.
The state of Louisiana sitting squarely in the crosshairs of both storms. We've got live coverage from the coastline as Marco closes in for a Monday strike with Laura right on its heels.
And we are here on the ground in New Orleans, Louisiana. It was a pretty quiet day, great for preparations, but tomorrow the weather goes downhill. And when the latest track is in, we're going to talk about the impacts and what it means here across New Orleans and areas south of us coming up. Mike.
Hey, good afternoon, Chris Bruin good evening from Key West, Florida. Another day in paradise, but the weather goes downhill tomorrow. We'll time it out. The impacts here in the Florida Keys, the latest on the watch and the change that was made at 5 p.m.
Well, thanks so much for being with us for our special coverage. Hurricane Marco, Tropical Storm Laura, both storms making their way to the Gulf Coast into this coming week. I'm meteorologist Alex Wilson alongside meteorologist Mike Bettis. He's in the lab. He'll join us with an update in just a moment, but want to get you caught up on the very latest headlines with these two systems. Here's what we know at the top of the hour. It is 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central Time. Mandatory evacuations are in effect for several southern Louisiana parishes. President Donald Trump has approved an emergency declaration for the state of Louisiana. Meanwhile, Texas is working to provide shelter and sanitation to 5,000 evacuees. Mike, let's get the very latest, starting with Marco. This is the storm that will make landfall first.
That's right. Likely to make a landfall tomorrow. Louisiana looks to be the target right now. With a new advisory that came in at 5 o'clock. There's an hour-old advisory, and we'll get another one at 8 o'clock. Wind speed didn't change, still 75 mile per hour wind speed here. North-northwest movement at 13 miles per hour, now 240 miles south-southeast of the mouth of the Mississippi. What did change is the track shifted just ever so slightly to the west. I don't think it changes the effects all that much here, but you look at where this thing is going, and it's over the open waters of the Gulf of Mexico right now, where the waters are steamy. Water temperature, sea surface temperatures, 85, 86, 88 degrees up here just off the coast. And so it's got an atmosphere here that's favorable for development. At least I would say this. It's got an atmosphere that doesn't mean it's going to weaken at all. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's an atmosphere that maintains its strength, or it may even notch up a little bit here. So that's what you should be preparing for. At minimum, a 75 mile per hour hurricane coming ashore here. Again, slight westward shift to the track here, coming in by tomorrow, and then hanging out for several days here into Louisiana and Texas. And we think flooding rain could become an ongoing concern here. Hurricane warnings in effect, Houma, Grand Isle here, but also hurricane watches in effect highlighted in orange here. That'll be New Iberia, New Orleans and Slidell, Lafayette, Baton Rouge over toward Biloxi, all under tropical storm warnings. So tropical storm winds could be affecting you there. All right, there's a look at the European model forecast. What you're seeing there circled is the vorticity or the spin. And so right now pinpointing maybe somewhere near Morgan City as a landfall location, or maybe even just off the coast from the European model. But notice what comes in behind it. There's Laura. Just waiting in the wings. Could be a much more significant hurricane, could be a stronger hurricane and a larger hurricane, but we think the impacts could be significant, Alex, over a course of several days because of both.
Absolutely. You know, we look at Marco. It's a small storm. It's battling a little bit of shear. I think that's going to help to keep it in check. So we're not anticipating a lot of strengthening. Shear lightens up by the time Laura gets into the Gulf, so could be looking at a much different situation for that storm. Want to break down, though, Marco first, because this is the one with the most imminent impacts there along the coast of Mississippi, Louisiana, also the state of Texas. We work our way northward with the tropical storm force winds, and by tomorrow, looking at a probability of tropical storm force winds to be highest along the southeastern Louisiana coastline. That's where we get those 70+% chances of the tropical storm force winds. I think 50 to 60% chance as we get from, say, the Mississippi, Louisiana state line down towards, say, the Houma area. Now, 40+ mile per hour wind gusts, very likely everywhere you see the yellow. So Mobile, Alabama, up to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, even over into portions of East Texas could be getting it on some 40+ mile per hour gusts. So that combined with heavy rainfall could lead to some localized power outages. Keep that in mind. Storm surge watches, storm surge warnings are in effect. The warnings across Mississippi and Louisiana. I think southeast Louisiana and the southern part of Mississippi is where we're most susceptible. There, the 3 to 5 foot storm surge. So that's the push of water onto dry land. Then we've got the rain that's going to be falling. And for a place like New Orleans, could be a significant amount of rain. 5 to 6 inches of rainfall possible across the Big Easy. And it's not just there, but a good chunk of the region going to get in on some hefty rainfall totals. Our Chris Bruin is in New Orleans this evening with a look at how the city is preparing for perhaps 2 systems this week, Chris.
Yeah, we've got a long week ahead of us, Alex. And, you mentioned the rainfall aspect and the forecast for 5 to 7+ inches of rain. This is coming off the heels of the wettest July on record for the city of New Orleans. Over 15 inches of rain. That made it the wettest spot in the U.S. for the month of July. And we're already at a surplus, nearly a foot above average for the year. So rainfall has been aplenty, and it's certainly an excess. It's been dry today, so for people preparing, we had a great day. It was Sunday. A lot of people were out getting brunch. But as far as preparations go, they were hitting the stores. There were long lines, of course, keeping in line with the protection precautions for COVID-19. Of course, long lines to get into the store to limit capacity, but also everyone getting that mad dash of water and those necessity supplies. Now, there is rain off in the distance. We just showed you that over the Crescent City Bridge, but we haven't seen any rain today, so that's helpful. If we can hold off on the rain, that will allow for more, ability to handle more rain come tomorrow. But tomorrow's going to look very different from what we're seeing today. And if you look from above, we can show you some drone footage. New Orleans is surrounded by water, okay? You've got water from the Mississippi River, and then a couple of miles away, you got Lake Pontchartrain, and then, of course, the low lying. Remember, New Orleans sits in a bowl below sea level. And so any water that were to get intruded in has to be pumped out. And that's why it's surrounded by a whole network of levees. And that's what we're standing on right now. We're standing on top of one of the levees, so it gives you an idea of what it looks like all around the city. Of course, mandatory evacuations have been issued, not for New Orleans, but for the parishes to the south, including Plaquemines Parish, as well as Grand Isle, Louisiana. That's another spot that's very vulnerable, where you're going to have that storm surge aspect. So thankfully, Mike, we've got 2 storms. That's just Marco we're talking about. As that pushes in tomorrow, we'll start seeing those outer bands, certainly heavy rain and gusty wind. So we know power outages, but then we got to watch Laura. And I don't think there's been 2 systems with every update. The tracks are constantly changing, and there's still a bit of uncertainty. So that may shift back towards New Orleans. Laura may come back. So there's a lot of uncertainty. You have to use the weather while it's calm now, just to prepare in advance of what's going to be a very busy, wet week.
Yeah, well, I mean, we think Marco happens here in the next 24 hours. I think that track, minor shifts are happening. The one that has the opportunity for bigger shifts could be Laura, but good point there that we've got to watch every single forecast with this, Chris. More from Chris coming up here, but let's show you what the future radar could hold for us here. And you can see big clusters of thunderstorms coming in for tomorrow morning already now. That'll include the panhandle of Florida through southern Mississippi and then around New Orleans as well. Look at this. We could be looking at pretty significant storms coming into coastal Louisiana, then around the Crescent City as well. That'll go all the way through the morning and then the afternoon, and there is a chance for severe weather. So that's the area highlighted, why we just urge you to be home tomorrow and shelter where you are, and lowest level of your home too, and just stay there unless, of course, water is an issue, and then you may consider evacuating to a safer shelter. Notice here by Tuesday morning, still plenty of rain hanging out for us here in Louisiana, Mississippi, and in Arkansas. And then as Marco shifts over into Texas, still produces heavy rain. And notice to the bottom of your screen what we're then watching. Here comes Laura, right on the heels of Marco. Some really heavy rain happening for us through the Panhandle. And this is where we could see some of the outer bands. Those could produce the severe weather. Here we are, Monday, 7 o'clock in the morning. Wouldn't rule out the possibility of water spouts and weak tornadoes rolling through here, Panama City to Destin to Pensacola. And there could be multiple rounds all along I-10 and south of I-10, Alex. So just something else to keep an eye on.
And of course, Hurricane Marco, not the only game in town, so to speak. We have Tropical Storm Laura on its heels.
South of I-10, Alex, so just something else to keep an eye on.
And of course, Hurricane Marco, not the only game in town, so to speak. We have Tropical Storm Laura on its heels, eyeing the same path as its predecessor. Yeah, that's right, Laura likely making its way into the Gulf Coast by the middle of this week. So let's start with where the storm is now. We are looking at south of the eastern side of Cuba, 60-mile-per-hour winds with this one. It continues to move to the west-northwest at 21 miles an hour. It's brought a lot of heavy rainfall today to portions of Hispaniola. In fact, flooding rainfall to that island, Haiti and the Dominican Republic dealing with some serious flooding problems. As we go through the next day or two, that'll continue to skirt along the south side of Florida. depending on the track of this, obviously more or less land interaction. More land interaction if it stays on the right side of the cone, on the left side of the cone, may have more time over water. Then this thing gets into the Gulf of Mexico, going to have a lot of time over water. Tropical storm watch in effect for portions of the Florida Keys. The warnings over Cuba and other parts of the Caribbean. So that's where we're concerned about the greater likelihood of those tropical storm force winds. As we watch this system make its way into the Gulf, that's when we think we'll see some intensification as well. By early Wednesday morning, 85-mile-per-hour winds. Landfall likely coming in the middle of the week. And you can see a Wednesday afternoon forecast of winds over 100 miles an hour with this one. So this one, as opposed to Marco, is going to have a little better opportunity to strengthen. The position on Tuesday afternoon puts it out there in the middle of the Gulf. We've got nothing but warm water to work with. We're talking 1 to 3 degrees above average for those water temperatures. Upper level high pressure, that's very conducive to these storms maintaining or strengthening. Exceptionally low wind shear. Marco's been up against some wind shear. That's kept it in check. Laura is not going to have any of that to deal with, so really nothing to give it a fight. As we look at the position of the upper winds, that's going to help to ventilate that system. You always hear us say the storm looks like it's breathing well. It also allow for the possibility of the storm to strengthen. And our forecast models do bring this into hurricane force winds. I don't want to rule out something that could be stronger than a Category 1-2 hurricane to the forecast, but we could be looking at potential for a strengthening storm. And for more on both of these storms, I want to bring in the director of the National Hurricane Center, Ken Graham. Ken, I thank you so much again for joining us. I know it's an exceptionally busy night for you. Let's start with Marco, of course, first in line. We're looking at a smaller storm, one that's had a little bit more to deal with in terms of threats against it. But what are you most concerned about with this storm into tomorrow?
You know, I think the biggest concern associated with Marco is we're still going to be getting some impacts despite the forecast change and despite being right along the coastline there and eventually becoming a tropical storm. A lot of times when those winds become tropical storm force, you see an expansion of that. So we're still going to see the rain bands, you're still going to see the storm surge, and right in that right front quadrant you can get 90% of your tornadoes as well. So you look at all that weather on that right side, that's still yet to come despite this forecast being a little further south.
About all those threats, if something were to occur in your town, to your home, Ken, they've got another storm right on its doorstep. I mean, we might need to just brace for the next one before we can really deal with the aftermath of Marco.
Exactly, and that's some of the messaging that we've been saying. There's round one and there's round two, and it's going to be interesting with Laura. We're forecasting to look at a hurricane. In fact, we're actually calling it to be a Cat 2 hurricane. But something we have to remember, not much shear. We're going to have plenty of that warm Gulf of Mexico. If the track right now is just south of Cuba, if we're a little left of where our track is, that's more water, more warm water, more time to strengthen. And you could look at a storm that's a little stronger than our forecast.
I wanted to ask you, Ken, because it seems like already that Laura has taken advantage of every opportunity given to it. Not a whole lot of interaction with Dominican Republic or Haiti, maybe now minimal interaction with Cuba, and the wind speed has increased here. So your thoughts of maybe having at some point to up the forecast here?
Yeah, that's a conversation we keep having, because if you think about it, the forecast has been, we saw the interaction and the heavy rain in Dominican Republic and Haiti and the flash flooding, but we also had a forecast that went over Cuba, and that would keep the strength at bay. But if you really look at this center just being south of the island, we're over the water. So that's more opportunity to maintain the strength and maybe becoming a hurricane quicker as we come off the Cuban island. That means, once again, more time to become stronger, and it could be a stronger hurricane, and also larger. So you start looking at places that got impacts from Marco, could start seeing the impacts associated with this system as well with Laura just a couple days later.
Yeah. We talk about Marco being a smaller storm, and right now the forecast is that this is going to be a weaker storm at landfall. Do you worry that people deal with Marco? Maybe they've prepared, they made it out okay. Do you worry that then maybe they don't find themselves as concerned with Laura, which could be a larger and much stronger storm?
Yeah, it's absolutely dangerous to compare storms. Every storm is so different, and our risk perception is based on our previous experience. So this is something that we have to talk about, because just because it didn't happen in Marco doesn't mean it won't happen in Laura. So you can't compare the storms. We have to be prepared for both of these and be prepared for the worst. I mean, that's having that plan, being ready, having a place to be safe. All that needs to take place. It's this, kind of a, double hit here with these two storms takes place. And some of the areas that get the water from Marco, if it shoves it in, it may not be able to drain. So there's going to be some areas with some water for a prolonged amount of time as you start getting Laura to come in and push more water in. Then so prolonged duration of water in some of these areas.
Yeah, that's a great point. Ken Graham, thank you so much for joining us. You heard it from him. Do not compare storms. Each one is going to bring its own threats. So I want you to treat both Marco and Laura as individuals and assess the threats for your area as you need to. We've got much more coverage as our Weather Channel coverage of, Laura and Marco.
Yeah, before you know it, they'll be talking about Nana. Now, I want to turn this off. And I want to do a model run. Hello, everybody just got in. I want to do a model run and see what I see, because I saw Nana earlier. I want to see if it got more power or if it dissipated. So let's do a model run and see what the impacts are now that things are changing and it's going south into Cuba. That's very important. Shouldn't take too long to load up. We'll look at it definitely before they get back. Hey, Black Navy. Do I think Laura will get to a Cat 3 strength? Yes, I do believe Laura will get to a Cat 3 strength. We got to wait and see. But now that it went south through Cuba, I definitely believe, let me clear that. I definitely believe that it is going to get a Cat 3 strength, because now it has more time to go over the warm waters. And that's a problem. Yeah. When you're running at NextRad Pro, it always does this. Let me clear this out so I can close you and start you back. And remember, if you ever use this software, link in the description. Hey, Mimics. And you have any problems, just like the name on the bottom, it says Paul. And he's the one that handles everything. So when you email him and say, hey, such and such ain't loading up, or whatever your problem may be nice to him, because he's the man. He's the one that'll say, okay, well, never mind, you don't need to use material. We're sorry for any inconvenience. Just be professionally back out. You know what I mean? So watch out. But he's a nice guy from the UK. Just so I thought I'd say, I love his stuff. I believe he is trying to make this software international. Hey, Robinson, do I think it will hit Texas? I think all possibilities are still on the table. I think all the way from Tallahassee all the way to Houston is still on the table, because now it's worse than wobbling. It is actually moving through Cuba. This is totally going to change direction and power. That is one last push with the island being in the way. That's the last time it's going to go here, and then it's going to be ready to get on a definite track, definite impact with possibility of more growth. That's after it gets on this island. So, but we're going to do a model run now and see the change as it's changing. Hey, Debbie, can you show us Nana after the current in Portland? Sure, I will. That's what our main thing is, to check up on all three at all times. I just put up a channel, well, not a channel, but a video this morning and this afternoon. I updated it on Nana. Matter of fact, I believe I'm the first one to bring it into question, because my eyes are open, guys. I'm going to make sure that we know everything we can about this. Hey, Robert. You watched a few times here? Yeah, on Weather Channel Live? Nice. Yeah, I'll try as long as I can. You know how it is out there. Hey, Mimics. Yeah, it's just my other channel. I feel so much better about that place. It just feels like I'm going home. You know, when I come here now, it's like coming to work. So, don't mean to, sound different or anything about this place. It's just, I'm just being honest with you guys. I always have been. Hey, Gary, how many inches are expected for Houston from Laura? You've heard 20 plus. Well, I will do a precipitation run after we look at this model and we can see how many inches you'll get, buddy. Yeah, hi soccer. Yeah, I love my other place, man. It's a lot of love. There's a lot of good people. Some of you are there. It's growing 4 times faster than this channel. Amron Dallin. Did you put your first and last name together? Hey, how you doing? When can you start your job? Oh, that was yeah. I modded you on the other channel. I got you, Mimex. It's just I didn't get everybody on this channel because I was mostly around the comments like crazy on my main channel. So all that over there. Hey, John, glad to see you, buddy. John was in Puerto Rico, guys. He can tell you all about what was going on as Laura passed by. All right, the model's done. Let's check and see what changed, and let's see if Nana is still visible. Okay, I can tell you off the bat, before we go to Marco, that the strength went down all the way to the keys. But you can clearly see the center right here. So it's still northbound winds, but it's getting strength down there, but it's still northbound winds. But as soon as it gets off that island. All right, let's look at Marco real quick. Okay, the impact winds you're looking at, I'll show them real quick so you can see the wide variety, is 20 to 30. Okay, 30 being the white. And you got to have bright white for the 30s and real bright for the high 30s. Just keep that in mind. Now this isn't the precipitation. We're going to be doing that next. It don't look like it don't soak in much. I think y'all going to be a rain story. From Marco. They're back on. Let me check real quick. I got to know. Okay. Start strengthening. Has a bit of orange and a bit of orange again right there. So maybe hitting the mountains will weaken it on John, because it's showing a lot of weakage going on here. We're not even close in the 90s on this thing. It's barely holding hurricane strength. So the mountains are affecting it. I mean, this isn't a direct path. Of course, it's going to change very quickly every hour until it gets out of that. And there's Nana. It does blow up kind of early. Like almost, I thought I saw a little orange. It's definitely a tropical storm. And it gets more powerful as it gets towards land, but it's staying within tropical storm strength, and it dissipates pretty quickly. So we gotta keep our eye on that, because we have 3 buddies. All right, they're back on. Let's go back to the Weather Channel. And then we'll do a precipitation to see how much water everybody's getting. So we've got Marco, Laura, Nana. And you see how much later Nana is. 30th. This has a lot of time to get strength, but correct me if I'm wrong, John, because everything is growing from down in these regions. Nana comes from down there, and actually, see that sparks right here? It comes from all this that's going on in Yucatan and whatnot. Couldn't this go west into the Pacific? That's my question. Let's go back and see what they talking about, and we'll find out. Almost forgot. I gotta open the page. Duh. So couldn't that go more in the Pacific? That's my question.
There, we've got severe weather possible here in the lower Keys where Mike was, but the overall trend here coming out into the Gulf of Mexico could mean that we see an intensifying hurricane that, Alex, you look at the forecast right now, right? It has winds of 60 miles an hour, forecast to go to 105, right?
Right.
I would say if there were any direction, if someone said to me, Mike, is it going to go higher than that or lower than that? Which way would you err on? I say, I think it would go on the higher end of that, especially when you consider all of the things the atmosphere is doing right now and all the things that the Gulf of Mexico sea surface temperatures are doing. Everything is favorable for strengthening.
There's many factors working for this and very few things working against Laura. So I'm right there with you. If you had to say, are you going to take this a little up? I would say yes. And even Ken Graham said there is most certainly the possibility of that moving forward.
Look at what the forecast was, though, yesterday. The forecast max wind was 85. Today, it's 105. Tomorrow, could it edge up even higher? That is not off the table here at all.
It's not, and we want to watch the trends. So important to do that. Know what the possibility is, but see those trends. We have been ticking this upward in the past, 24 to 48 hours. Well, Mike, some new video of evacuation traffic heading out of Grand Isle, Louisiana. This, of course, ahead of Hurricane Marco. This one will be making landfall tomorrow morning, or tomorrow. We'll begin to see the effects in the morning, but southeastern Louisiana, southern Mississippi, some of the communities most in the path for this. And we talk about what an extra issue it is this year because we've also got the ongoing pandemic. So it makes our normal hurricane preparation a little bit more difficult. So some of the things that we've recommended throughout the season is evacuating to a friend's home. That eliminates the need for you to go to a shelter and obviously would limit how many people you're going to be around. It also reduces the strain on responders and healthcare workers. And we've learned that so many of those responders, those volunteers, are of a more susceptible group. So kind of keeping everybody safe there. Help any elderly family members or friends you have. Make sure they have the supplies they need. Maybe if you're making the run to the store, go to the store and have their list as well and help them plan for evacuations. Many times we hear that elderly folks who don't have transportation are those who are left in place and susceptible to the storm. Now, properties with a substantial flood risk, you can see many of those on the southern and southeastern side of the state of Louisiana, exactly where we anticipate that surge and heavy rain from Marco.
Okay, thank you, Memex. I appreciate you for that. Yep, the link, it might be on a card on this one, but yeah, you just go to my main channel, go to this channel on the front cover and you'll see my main channel. That's definitely Nana growing. Okay, let's do some precipitation. Let's see what's going on right now with the rain. Let's do the next 60 hours. That's really what we want to see first, because all of them just take longer. Now let's see storms. We might not see the Laura impact from this 60 hours unless she speeds up quickly. Hey, thank you, Harrison. I appreciate it. Yeah, this one is just for all the Weather Channel lovers that was always out there through the years. But just keep doing it for them, you know what I mean? But yeah, mine at home is where I'm going to devote the new things to. All right, it's still loading. You can see it up here on the top. Check the MDR and see if there's any tropical development. Let's turn this on. I don't see any, we can run a model and see for ourselves. The software's not picking it up. And it looks like the high pressure released tension really, really good, and it has an upward track now. Okay, it was coming this way. I would draw it, but how's y'all Sunday going? Is your Sunday going good? That is just crazy right there. It predicts it could be a 2. Max winds 104 with wind gusts to 127. So we'll check on wind gusts after. I don't use their warnings. I don't like them. I like my own. I have some good ones. It's almost loaded. It's on 30. We're probably going to go back to them before it's done loading. Kingwood, Houston. Hey, Austin. Houston. Well, we're going to check out. We just ran the 10-meter damaging winds model. So if you want to back it up, I believe YouTube automatically backs it up for 4 hours. But me, I don't keep these streams. It's just a help stream. It's not even going to be on the channel when we're done with this stream. So everything we say and do here stays here. He started online school Monday. Nice, John. Congratulations, man. Wish I was there. Pat yourself on the back for me. .44. It's almost there. This is going to be a severe storm. This is what we want to see. Now, the warnings should be loading up anytime now for you, so you can see all the hurricane warnings and watches in the tropical storms. Just give it a moment, because it's downloading also these right here. And they're back on. See, I told you. All right, I'm going to go to them real quick, and then we're going to come back to this, and it'll be all loaded and ready for us. I'll back it up a little bit.
My biggest fear this year is
it's far more valuable than your property. Your property can be replaced, your life cannot.
When they say evacuate, that means leave.
my biggest fear this year is that we get in a situation where you've literally got two hurricanes that are threatening the United States that come in very close to each other. Maybe a couple of days, maybe 3-4 days. But that's my biggest fear about the 2020 season.
Yeah, unfortunately, some of those biggest fears that we had for this season being realized as we are looking at truly a 1-2 punch of tropical systems, both anticipated to make landfall as hurricanes along the Gulf Coast. We have Hurricane Marco out over the Gulf of Mexico right now. That's going to move into portions of Louisiana and Mississippi tomorrow. Behind it, there's Tropical Storm Laura, anticipated to become a hurricane as it makes its way also into the Gulf of Mexico for midweek. So you heard Jim mention, two storms within a short period of time. That's exactly, unfortunately, what we have on tap this year, a year that has already brought so much in the way of difficulties. I know with storms and active weather, gosh, we got the fires out west, and then, of course, the pandemic on top of all of that. So it has not been an easy year for many, and unfortunately, we don't get the feeling that these storms are going to make things any easier for us. Marco, currently a hurricane, again, likely to make landfall tomorrow along the Gulf Coast. Then Laura following behind. Middle of this week is when we anticipate Laura to move into portions of Louisiana or Texas. That's our cone forecast for that storm. Both likely to bring rain, wind, storm surge. We could be seeing, two storms affect some of the same areas. So it truly could be deal with one, very quickly deal with the second before you're able to, deal with the aftermath of one or both. Forecast for Laura. We anticipate this to strengthen to a Category 2 hurricane at landfall. That's the National Hurricane Center forecast. That is higher than the forecast was at landfall yesterday. So there are plenty of factors that are going to help this system strengthen in the coming days. We're talking very little wind shear over the Gulf of Mexico. That water is bathtub warm, will provide the fuel. Upper level winds also supportive of a strengthening storm. So could we see that forecast get even higher in the days to come? Very much a possibility. Again, here is Laura's overall forecast. Cuba right now in the path of this storm, depending on how much of Cuba interacts with the circulation of this storm, could determine how strong it is when it moves away from Cuba. If we, of course, have a system that moves along the left side of the cone, more time over water, we could be dealing with a stronger system as it makes its way into the Gulf of Mexico, and that again may have us upping the numbers moving forward. But right now for Laura, we've been dealing with very heavy rainfall across Hispaniola. Now moving forward into tomorrow, this is Marco. When to be ready for those tropical storm force winds? Monday morning, moving into places like New Orleans. Our Chris Bruin is in the Big Easy today. Chris, of course, wind could be an issue, but also flooding rainfall.
Yeah, we think that's going to be the biggest issue, especially when it comes to Marco here in New Orleans, okay? We've had a great afternoon and really a great Sunday overall for last-minute preparations. You can see the sky conditions. This is essentially what it's been like all day. We've had partly cloudy skies, sunshine, a gentle breeze. Temperature is actually comfortable to get outside and pick out anything in your yard that could become projectiles and higher winds. And any last-minute preparations, errands you need to get going to the stores. We know the stores were packed and supplies, they're starting to be taken quickly and are running low in some cases. I want to show you what the governor of Louisiana was saying for residents here and visitors alike as they prepare for Marco and Laura.
You should be taking today and making sure that you and your family are fully prepared and that wherever you are at dark tonight, when it gets dark is where you need to be prepared to ride out these storms.
All right, great tips there. By dark time tonight, by the time you go to bed, you want to be done. You don't want to have to get out there in the morning and go run errands. A lot of things are closed, including the City Hall. I want to show you some of the skies, though, as we had to break. Again, it's a lot to take in. We've got 2 storms. We want to talk about Marco's forecast. We're going to be watching increase in thunderstorms, especially after sunrise tomorrow. Tonight, we'll have some hit-and-miss thunders, boomers, but not everybody getting in on the action, which is nice because we don't need any additional rain on top of the tropical moisture headed our way. That all changes come tomorrow, and you can see these skies. They're going to be turning gnarly, especially when it comes to the heavy rainfall threat. Forecast calling for 5 to 7 inches plus, and that's not even factoring in what we could get from Laura later on this week. We'll be right back.
Yeah, Laura's going to be a mess. Hurricane warning is expiring at 12 in the morning on the 24th. I'll read you these. Well, let's look at this real quick so you can see. I don't see any warnings over there for towards Houston, so keep that in mind, Texas. There's Marco. There's a future run model of severe storms. It does hook in, probably gets pulled in from Lake Pontchartrain. Yep. Then here comes Laura into the play. I can guarantee you we definitely not going to see, that's a good formation right there. We're not going to see Nana on this one because Nana's further away. It's a well formed right there. Let's get our few clicks that we get. Oh, there's a curve. You see us doing a curve. It goes straight for New Orleans and then pulls in. Because the original area is right here. So we gotta watch out for that. Just gonna let this play real quick. Matter of fact, I gotta turn the speed up because I got it too slow more than likely. I think 400 might be okay. Let's see how this moves. Yeah, 400 is good. All right. Now while that's running, I'm going to read some of these. Hurricane warning remains in effect until 12:15 a.m. on the 24th. Southeast winds 35 to 45 knots. Now divide that by 6 and add that number to the 35 or 45. You get miles per hour. Like 6 times 7 is 42. So this can go all the way up to 45 plus 7 is 52 miles per hour winds. With gusts up to 80 knots. Now that's times almost 12. It is 13. So that's 93 miles per hour winds. And seas 21 to 26 feet. Portions of Gulf of Mexico. Tropical storm force winds possible from early Monday morning until early Wednesday morning. Hurricane force winds possible from Monday morning until Monday afternoon. Let me hurry up and go through these other ones real quick. This is a tropical storm warning. This is a hurricane watch. The watch should be a warning if you ask me. What you have over here, let's see, towards Mississippi and the rest of the coast, is it the same? Tropical storm warnings. Okay, so this is all warnings. 15 to 25 knot winds. Okay, hold on. They got President making a speech.
Hurricane Marco and Tropical Storm.
Most adaptable preparations for both Marco and Laura. Take a listen.
My administration is also closely monitoring Hurricane Marco and Tropical Storm Laura, which are coming in rapidly. Hurricane Marco is expected to make landfall in Louisiana tomorrow, and Tropical Storm Laura is expected to hit Louisiana 2 days later. This is somewhat unprecedented, the scope of the storms and also the fact that they come so quickly after one another. Both storms have the potential of gathering strength before they make landfall and could cause significant damage across the Gulf Coast and also in Puerto Rico. We have everybody stationed and ready to go in Puerto Rico and the Gulf Coast, and we have tremendous people. We have FEMA is lined up, and we have the Coast Guard ready. The Coast Guard has done a fantastic job. They do such good work, and we want to thank our great Coast Guard. I'm asking all Americans in the storm's path to follow the instructions of your state and local governments very closely. And I've approved emergency declarations for Puerto Rico and for Louisiana. FEMA is mobilized on the ground and is ready to help. They will be in there very quickly, very, very quickly. And I spoke to Governor John Bell Edwards also of Louisiana, and I've informed him, and at his request also, a major disaster declaration is signed and ready to go. We have everybody ready in Puerto Rico, the Gulf Coast, Louisiana, and also on the forest fires in California. So we have a great team. Unfortunately, we have some very, very powerful natural disasters.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much going on right now. I mean, but the key takeaways there, folks, we've got disaster declarations now for Puerto Rico as well as Louisiana. It's going to free up some federal resources to get in there. And then across California, of course, with the wildfires. Unfortunately, we're going to focus solely on the tropics tonight. I know it's a big story across the West, but the imminent danger here in coastal Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama can't be understated at all. You can see, though, look at this. Look at how the cloud blow off here, picked up by a bit of a trough here. Look at the clouds from Marco. They go all the way up into the Carolinas here tonight, but the center of circulation sitting about down in here, and we are preparing for a potential strike here in Louisiana tomorrow. In fact, we think it's pretty much a certainty at this point. Skimming us here in Louisiana with the latest forecast, shifting just a little bit farther west now, and then over the course of about 3 days, hanging out Louisiana and Texas, producing some really heavy rain. Forecast to remain at a hurricane strength, impacts along the Gulf Coast, and you can see here storm surge watches in effect. That'll include all the way from near Morgan City all the way to the state line of Texas, then storm surge warnings that go all the way over toward Biloxi here. We've got storm surge potential of 4 to 6 feet here. That will include Grand Isle, but also I don't want to leave you out in a place like, say, Pascagoula or Mobile. 1 to 3 feet of water rise expected here, and then 3 to 5 maybe around, say, Pass Christian or Long Beach, Mississippi. All right, there's a look at the future radar coming in with some really heavy showers and thunderstorms here in the morning in Panama City, in Pensacola, in Mobile, and then hitting us here in Louisiana and Mississippi throughout the day. And some of that weather could be severe weather, including the possibility even of tornadoes coming in here. So that's why an area especially highlighted in the dark red color could see tornadoes, a torque count of 3 for us here. Again, not a high probability, but brief little spin-ups are certainly possible anytime you have a landfalling system. Then watch the precipitation follow along the track of the storm as it shifts off to the west here. Periods of heavy rain and thunderstorms. Urban flooding could be a problem. Low-lying areas could fill up with water. And then, if you notice to the bottom of your screen, there sits Laura, just waiting to come ashore here, Alex. And that could be a significantly different storm than Marco, much bigger and much stronger.
Right. So I don't want people to gauge their experience with Marco
Not at
and
all.
think that it's going to be the same for Laura. These are going to be very, very different storms with different effects for different people. Let's start with Marco and the probability of tropical storm force winds as we go through the next 3 days. You can begin to see Laura sneaking in there to the Gulf as we get towards the end of the time frame. But in portions of southern Louisiana, that red color would indicate 70% chance of tropical storm force winds. Into the Big Easy, about a 50% chance of seeing those tropical storm force winds. And over into parts of southern Mississippi, we could be looking at a 30 to 40% chance of tropical storm force winds. So things could be a bit breezy to gusty depending on where you are. Maximum wind potential for a lot of the region will be 40-mile-per-hour gusts, maybe in that 45, 50-mile-per-hour range in spots. I think the greatest risk of the 60-mile-per-hour gusts would be around and south of the New Orleans metro area. So farther south you are, the greater the risk the winds will be. Rainfall going to be a problem for many locations, even well inland. We get you up towards the Louisiana-Mississippi state line. Could see 1 to 2 inches there, but take a look. New Orleans and southeastern Louisiana stick out like a sore thumb in terms of how much rain. That orange color indicative of 5 to 8 inches. So a half foot definitely within the realm of possibility there across portions of Louisiana. Regionally, could see some heavy rain even exceeding into the south central part of Louisiana. Then we, of course, deal with rainfall from Laura. So this could be a really soggy week for many areas, and flooding will be a real concern moving into the next few days. Into tomorrow morning, flash flood risk along the Gulf Coast. Tomorrow into early Tuesday, I think.
All right, they're going to commercial, guys. And that rainfall that you saw, okay, that was light, 1 to 2 inches over here below Lafayette. That's going to be subject to change. Believe that. Now, Lily was curious what these are over here by Miami. It's a marine weather statement. Deerfield Beach to Ocean Reef. Juniper Inlet to Deerfield Beach. Winds are going to be around 30 knots. It's like small craft advisories and such like that. Tropical storm watch is the dark. That expires at 1:15 a.m. on the 24th. Now we got to look at precipitation. We've seen this. Yeah, it does a western turn. All these numbers are going to shift. Yeah, I didn't see any models pick up any tropical activity in MDR anywhere, John. They would have picked up a X. It would have been a yellow X, and it's not picking anything up. Let's check precipitation. See how much rain we're getting. Give it a second. Now, all these warnings, they update every couple of minutes. So, hey, Sebastian. Yeah, I saw him. He wants me to check the MDR and see if there's any latest activity. And when I checked the tropical with everything on, there is no MDR. There's no wind rallies, except for what's happening now. But when we run this precipitation outlook, we'll see if we see anything, John. We should have done that when we saw the 10-meter winds. Yeah, an MDR, the main development region. We're going to check that. Let's let it load its model. What was rallies? A storm surge warning and hurricane warning are in effect for Lower Jefferson, Lower Lafourche, Lower Plaquemines, Lower St. Bernard, and Lower Terrebonne. That's the parishes. Tropical storm warning and hurricane watch are in effect for Ascension and St. James. A storm surge warning and tropical storm warning are in effect for Hancock and Harrison. A tropical storm watch is in effect for Amite, Northern Tangipahoa, Pearl River, Pike, St. Helena, and Walthall, Washington, and Wilkinson. A hurricane warning is in effect for Assumption, Upper Lafourche, and Upper Terrebonne. This goes on and on. This is all going to change. Storm intensity 75 miles per hour. This is all going to change. It's going to shift west. Okay, let's do that. Is this loaded? Almost. What we got so far? Yeah, one of the bands do reach all the way around to Houston. We're going to check that out. And then we have Nana. Let's check the MDR real quick. I tell you, John will pull me right through this microphone if I don't watch it. Tila, you got me everywhere. All right. Dry air. We get a good roll right there. It goes right over you, John. That looks like that could be close to tropical depression right there with the colorings of the intensity of the rain. Another big high one right there, which don't scare me. Usually the high ones get sucked out by that high, right? And our clicks forward, another shooting high. That's good. That first one, though, that first one was kind of right here after the dry air. Could be a possibility. If anything, you got a lot of rain coming your way, buddy. All right, they're back on. Let's see what they say, then we'll come right to this precipitation, guys, so we can see exactly how much we're getting.
You do everything you can to save your life and the lives of others.
Fortunately, here in Florida, it's just a brush by, and primarily here in the Keys, there's a tropical storm watch. Now, they dropped it from the area around Cedar Key, I should say, from Marathon North, from Marathon South, the Middle and Lower Keys. It's Craig Key North they dropped it, Craig Key South, including Marathon and Key West. It's still in effect. Tropical storm watch. We expect the worst of the weather here tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening. We could get wind gusts to 40 miles an hour as some of those squalls roll in, but the storm itself is going to be 200 miles to our south and then off to our southwest as it goes by tomorrow evening. On the radar right now, we've got a few showers out there. In fact, some lightning and thunder all the way up in Broward County in southeast Florida. We've had a few gusty storms roll through the middle and upper Keys. We had one in Duck Key over the past hour just north of Marathon, but we'll see more and more of these tomorrow as we get those outer squalls and bands, and that's where we'll have the strongest winds and most of the rain. But with that said, we're not going to see the rainfall totals we've seen on its track across Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, Cuba. Some spots have already had upwards of 10 inches of rain. That is not going to happen here. That may be a concern as we get into the early and middle part of the week as Laura heads towards the northern Gulf Coast of the U.S. Right now, though, another beautiful evening here in Key West. Hardly a cloud in the sky, some high cirrus coming in. That's the direction that we're looking for Laura. It's still way, way far away, about 750 to 800 miles off to our south and east. So we got a long way to go. Weather will start to go downhill tomorrow morning. We do have that coastal flood watch here on this side of the Keys, the south side. Water levels at high tide may run about 1 foot to 2 feet above average. So Mike Bettis dodging for the most part another one. They completely missed Isaias in the Keys. They're fine with that. Remember Irma just a few years ago, it came in as a major hurricane just about a half an hour north of here.
Yeah, Mike, if we could just keep that good fortune coming for us there in the Keys, boy, it'd be a very, very happy hurricane season. There's no question about that. Mike, thanks so much. Appreciate the reports there from Key West. We'll watch the weather go downhill for you tomorrow somewhat. But I think it's just one day. Tomorrow's going to be, not the best of weather days, and then much better by Tuesday. All right, let's show you what's happening with Tropical Storm Laura here. It certainly has taken advantage of the opportunities given to it, including coming out over the open waters now. Not a whole lot of interaction with land at this point. So the winds have ticked up here, now up to 60 miles per hour, west-northwest movement. Could it potentially stay, for the most part, off of land or maybe just briefly touching, Cuba here. It's the possibility that that could happen. So it's just something that we're going to keep an eye on here and see what happens with it over the course of the next 24 hours. Will it have a huge impact whether it goes over land or not? I don't know if it actually will or not. Ken Graham, the Hurricane Center director, was commenting that if it stays over water, it might have an opportunity to strengthen just a little bit more here. So again, we're going to follow this for you very closely and show you exactly how this all pans out. But I want to show you the track of this. Does it more or less just skim us here in Cuba and then kind of hits us at the end here? I think, again, by Tuesday morning, we could still be looking at a strengthening system going to 65 miles per hour and then strengthening all the way up to a landfall. Here we are, strong Category 2 by Wednesday evening, and potentially could we even clip up to a Cat 3 by landfall time? It's possible. I just wanted to put that out there. It's possible that we could have a Category 3, a major hurricane making landfall. There goes Marco in that direction, and then here comes Laura. Here we are, 6 o'clock in the morning, according to the Euro model, hitting us around Morgan City, Louisiana, producing some really heavy rainfall. And then the rainfall Tuesday through Wednesday then works its way across the southeast and maybe even up toward the Tennessee River Valley. Look where this thing goes. As Marco hooked left, now Laura is likely going to hook to the right here, not before producing really heavy rain across the deep south here. It'll be moving, though. That's the benefit here. It's going to be moving. It's not going to stall necessarily. We think Marco more likely to stall than Laura is. All right, so there's a look at the European model forecast, and you can see a corridor of really heavy rain being pumped out now. That includes Louisiana through Mississippi. Double-digit rainfall totals are possible. A lot of locations will go underwater. And you see the forecast here does produce some rain across Texas. Some of that will be leftover rain from Marco, but there is a hot spot in there. There's a bullseye. We're likely going to get a foot or more of rain. We know we cannot handle a foot of rain in a day's time. Places are going to go underwater. There's the GFS model. Again, still heavy rain, maybe not.
Man, that's a lot of heavy rain. All right, John, see you later, buddy. Have a good one, man. Hey, Circles. Well, I have a precipitation model now, and you want to know about Mississippi. All right. So we're going to follow this precipitation in and see how much of this rain you are getting. And it's just like any other model. When you get up into the red, that's heavy rain, that's bad. It's just like severe storms. You get up into the white, that's the scary stuff. Just pretty much keep it in your mind like that, and you can tell exactly what your impacts are going to be. And this spreads out. Marco spreads all the way out here, all this color change. Houston gets a whop on a band right there. And it shows you, it turns. It goes towards Lake Charles like originally thought. Then you got storm surge on top of this. Plus you got the winds that are going to be crazy with Laura. Is she sit anywhere? No, she comes right up by me and says hello. That's good. Let me do it from here. Yeah. Let me bring you to windy, because they can tell you the rainfall accumulation in the next 10 days. Okay, here's the next 5 days. And here's the next 10 days. Like if you do now, right? This is pretty much how you tell this. Next 3 days, you can tell where it's starting to hit. And your color chart is over here on the right, bottom right. Next 5 days. Mississippi, you're going to get a lot of it. Right above Jackson. Heavy too, that heavy pink. That's not good at all. 15 inches right there. I don't want to read it. 10 inches. New Orleans getting 8. West of Macomb, Mississippi, you're getting 18 inches. The green you're looking at is all 2 to 4 inches. The blue is 3/4 of an inch. Look at all this rainfall all the way up to Kentucky. That's a little crazy. All right, we're seeing precipitation. I want to see something else. Oh, we could do the storm track. Yeah. Let's track these cells and see where they're going. See if they collide with anything. All right, they're back on. While this is loading, we're going to go back to them.
We've got live coverage from the coastline as Marco closes in for a Monday strike with Laura right on its heels.
And we are high atop the levees here in New Orleans on the banks of the Mississippi River. We've got not one, but 2 tropical threats. We're going to talk about the specific impacts and what our greatest concerns are going into this upcoming week when it comes to Marco and then Laura right now on the Weather Channel. Alex?
Yeah, very busy week ahead for the Gulf Coast. We'll get back out to Chris in just a moment. I want to thank you for being with us for our special coverage of Hurricane Marco and Tropical Storm Laura. Tropical Storm Laura actually expected to become a hurricane by the time it makes landfall. I'm meteorologist Alex Wilson. We've got meteorologist Mike Bettis here in the lab. He's going to get us caught up on the storms, but I want to get you caught up on the headlines right now with both of these systems. So here's what we know at this hour. The Red Cross is ramping up and mobilizing teams for both Hurricane Marco and Tropical Storm Laura. Mandatory evacuations are in effect for several southern Louisiana parishes, and President Donald Trump has approved an emergency declaration for the state of Louisiana as well as for Puerto Rico. Want to start with Marco, the one that's going to make landfall for the start of our week. Mike Bettis, this is a hurricane now with possibly a second one to follow.
It's scary when you think about it. 2 hurricanes could hit in a matter of just 48 hours. Tough to think about it, right? Let's look at Marco first. It's going to be the first one to hit. It's a Category 1, 75-mile-per-hour hurricane. Notice here how the convection has really waned here in the afternoon. A lot of times these storms will blow up with thunderstorms overnight, so we could see an explosion of storms overnight tonight. Don't think that it's on a weakening trend and it's going to be nothing when it comes in. This could be pretty significant when it comes in tomorrow. Northwest movement at 13 miles per hour, so it won't be long before the effects are felt. We've got ample warm sea surface temperatures. That's not going to be a hindrance to at least maintain strength, maybe even potentially increase strength a little bit here. We have a relatively low shear environment. We have high pressure over top, and so those are all things that are favorable for at least maintaining strength. The advisory that came out at 5 o'clock just ever so slightly shifted the track a little bit farther west here with more of a skim along the Louisiana coastline here, but I would not at all rule out a direct hit here in Louisiana, and then meandering its way westbound over the course of, say, 2+ days. Hurricane warnings in effect here in purple, Grand Isle and Homa here. We've got New Iberia, New Orleans, under hurricane watches for us here, and then tropical storm watches and warnings that go inland and then farther to the west as well, over around Cameron as well. But Lafayette, Baton Rouge, we're included in that as well. And let's show you what's going on with John Bell Edwards, by the way, speaking right now to what's happening in Louisiana. Let's listen to the governor.
You know, these are unique and severe weather systems that we're going to contend with. Hurricane Marco and Tropical Storm Laura, I should say. And we do want to make sure that you have the very latest information as it relates to the weather and as it relates to what you should be doing to be prepared for these storms. Since our press conference this morning, I spoke with the president about our preparations and response in Louisiana. He informed me that he had signed the declaration, a federal disaster declaration that I had asked him to sign, and we certainly appreciate him very much for doing that, because that's going to allow federal assistance to our state including emergency protective measures, limited to assistance for mass care, including evacuation and shelter support. And obviously this is timely and a good thing because, as I'm sure you're aware, the 4 p.m. update from the National Weather Service now forecasts Laura to potentially make landfall in Louisiana on the cusp of being a Category 3 hurricane. Right now, she's still a tropical storm, but she's predicted to at least be a strong Category 2 hurricane and right on the line with Category 3 when she makes landfall in Louisiana. And we always advise people to be prepared for a storm that is 1 degree higher, 1 level higher than forecasted anyway. So we need to be ready for a Category 3 hurricane. Just to put this into context, we haven't had a Category 3 hurricane in Louisiana since Hurricane Rita in 2005. And I know that particular year brings up horrific memories and images for all of us in Louisiana. And we also know that tremendous progress has been made in Louisiana in terms of the hurricane risk reduction system and other levees and other flood protection that we have in place. So we ask you to keep in mind that this storm, Laura, could be stronger than we previously thought. Don't let your guard down. And we're also looking at a 1-2 punch because Laura is the second one that we're going to see. The first one is going to be Hurricane Marco. And there's also been a change in the forecast there on the track, not necessarily on the intensity with respect to Marco, but it's going to come in around the mouth of the river and then make a really hard left turn or a westward turn and hug the coast for a while. So we're going to get basically a right hook from Marco and then a left hook from Laura, and to describe what that's going to look like in a little more detail. With me again today, I have meteorologist Benjamin Schott. Now he works for the National Weather Service out of the New Orleans office, and you can see I have many other members of the team. I'm going to ask Ben to come up and brief you all, and when he's completed that, I'll come back up, and then when I complete my remarks, you'll be able to ask questions of me or any of the other members of my team that you see up here. Thank you. Ben?
And you have been listening to Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards give a briefing about both Marco and Laura here. And one thing he said is in particular there about Laura, which could be the second one that comes in, be prepared for 1 category higher than what's currently forecast. He said, be prepared for a Category 3. All right, and that's what we would also just urge you to do here. I'll go back and start with Marco here again and pick up where we left off before the governor was speaking there. But Marco coming in tomorrow, Laura likely to come in on Wednesday. Now, here we go. Coming in now, according to the European forecast model, late morning, midday for us here, but then a left-hand turn that could then, if you take a look at the forecast, then even keep it offshore as we go into Tuesday, as then Laura comes in behind that. Could there actually, in some sense, be a bit of a Fujiwara happening there? It's possible that could actually be happening just a little bit here, at least one taking a turn to the south and one coming in to the north of there, but it's that second one in particular that could pose a very significant threat. All right, let's take a look at the GFS model. This is the American model. Again, coming in similar to the European model, this happening on tomorrow, and then making a left-hand turn as well, kind of skimming along the coastline, skimming along the Texas coastline as well. And then Laura coming in behind that a little bit closer. All right, so just interesting to see how the forecast has shifted just a little bit west over the course of the day today. When are we likely to see the tropical storm force winds arrive? Likely by Monday morning here in coastal Louisiana, and then increasing through the day through Louisiana. So we just want you to be prepared for that. The winds, may not be the most significant player with Marco. I think it could potentially be the rain here, Alex, but be prepared for everything, especially with another one coming right on the heels of this one.
Well, you make a good point. Marco is a smaller storm. The area of thunderstorms closer to the center a bit more compact. New video to share with you of Laura, which we'll talk about in a moment, kicking up some big surf, big waves there in Cuba. Also flooding rainfall today across Hispaniola, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic, getting some really impressive, if not unbelievable, rainfall totals that has led to some devastated flooding. But let's get back to Marco. And again, I mentioned the compact size of this one. That will, I think, limit the wind field and the effects of that wind field as it makes its way closer to the coast. But as Mike rightly pointed out, rain could be a real issue with this. We could also see it expand a bit in size as it makes its way closer to the coast. So as we walk you through some of the issues that we'll be seeing with this storm, wind, of course, is one of those possibilities, one of those problems, hazards that'll be making its way towards the Louisiana coastline into tomorrow. When we look at the colors in the red, that's 70 to 80% chance of tropical storm force winds. So that'll really be limited to southern and southeastern coastal sections of Louisiana. I think for a place like New Orleans, likely looking at about a 50% chance of tropical storm force winds there. 60-mile-per-hour gust winds, New Orleans southward, 40-plus-mile-per-hour gusts, though, from portions of Mississippi and Alabama all the way back over to East Texas. So could take down some small tree limbs, maybe even some localized power outages. I don't want to rule it out. Storm surge warnings, those are in effect across coastal sections of Louisiana. So we've got Grand Isle and then up towards southern Mississippi as well, areas around Biloxi and to the west, watching for that possibility of that push of water onto dry ground. 3 to 5 foot surge likely across sections of eastern coastal Louisiana and southern Mississippi. That's where we'll have that greatest onshore push, given the angle at which Marco will be advancing closer to the Gulf Coast. All right, so rainfall still to come. This is something that's really going to be a headline. We could see a half foot of rain here across southeastern Louisiana. And when we talk about a place like New Orleans, Chris Bruin is there. Chris, gosh, 5-6-inch rain totals are going to cause big problems in that city, much of which is below sea level.
Yeah, and that's a problem. Remember, too, a lot of that rain gets pumped out of the city. We've got about 99 pumps, all of which are ready to be worked. So that is good news. The city is as prepared as we can get when it comes to, two tropical threats. It gets complicated. So let's really just focus in on Marco right now, because that's the one we're going to see first. That's when we start getting impacts as early as tomorrow. Today, for preparations, it's actually been very nice. Not even that hot, given to, Louisiana standards in August. It could be a lot worse. We've got a persistent breeze. We haven't seen a lot of rain today. There have been some thunderstorms off in the distance, but nothing that's impacted the city here or really any of the metro area of New Orleans. You can see the skies tonight. Guys, the sunset tonight is going to be phenomenal. And oftentimes, right before tropical systems, you get incredible sunsets. So note that if you get some time, take a look at the sky to your west before going to bed tonight. Remember to have all those preparations done, because by the morning, it's going to be very cloudy. We're going to have a stronger breeze than what we're dealing with. Winds will start picking up, and we'll be seeing those intermittent squally rain bands push through. They'll become more widespread, I think, late morning and throughout much of the afternoon. Remember, too, even if we don't get a direct landfall, say, in New Orleans, say about 100 or more miles off to our west, we're still on the active side. That's the right front quadrant. We're on the right side of a very right-loaded system, which is typically the case. So you're going to have a lot more of your rain bands. You're going to have the potential for twisters. We know tropical systems can produce tornadoes, and that's something we'll be on the lookout for. And then, of course, the water rise. We know how easily the lake shore of Lake Pontchartrain can flood. So be mindful of that. And, of course, if you live in a flood-prone spot, that heavy rain threat's really going to be an issue. And Mike, after coming off our wettest July on record, where we picked up well over a foot of rain just in the month of July as a whole. In fact, totals over 15 inches when you're looking at already a surplus for the year, and certainly for the summer and July. You throw in another 4 to 8 inches on top of that, flash flooding's a problem. And then you got to factor in the rain we could get from Laura. So it's a complicated forecast, and we know flash flooding and the winds are really going to be an issue here in New Orleans and across Louisiana.
The history we've had with rain so far in 2020 has not been a kind one. That is for sure, and it's about to get a lot worse. Chris, thanks for the update there. Again, as he mentioned, boy, just a super nice day today, not even terribly hot for us in New Orleans today. So it's a good day for you to finish up your preparations. And as the governor was telling us, wherever you are tonight, is where you need to be to ride out both storms at this point. All right, so let's show you what the future radar holds for us here as the storm system comes in. This is Marco with heavy rain and thunderstorms here that will include Panama City, Destin, Pensacola, Mobile. That'll include Biloxi, and then right into, we think, New Orleans as well through the evening tomorrow. The possibility of tornadoes is there. Severe weather is likely from Grand Isle to New Orleans to Gulfport here, Torcon of 3. So low chances for tornadoes, but we think they will happen. Brief, quick spin-ups of weak tornadoes very likely to happen. There's a look, by the way, at the movement then that pushes it off to the west here. Inland flooding could then be an issue if you're going to have rain up toward Jackson, Alexandria, then over through the Arklatex as well. And then waiting in the wings is Laura coming in right behind that. Let's show you the high-res future radar tonight and then going through tomorrow, especially here in the Panhandle. The outer bands could be really, really fierce for us, and several bands could come into Panama City over into Pensacola for us here. And look at this, from morning through midday through evening, we're going to be threatened by these squall lines, and those are the ones that could produce tornadoes as well. For Pensacola, Monday evening through Tuesday morning, 15+ mile-per-hour gusts, but 30-mile-per-hour gusts coming Tuesday through Wednesday. Rainfall forecast up to, say, 3 inches could come our way for Mobile. We're looking for 30-mile-per-hour gusts to begin for us tomorrow evening through Tuesday morning. Rainfall, not extreme necessarily, 1 to 2 inches. There could be isolated locations that pick up a little bit more than that, but the general forecast right now would call for a 1 to 2 with heavier rain down right at the coastline here, and could be some spots maybe near coastal Mississippi, Gulfport, Biloxi, Pascagoula, where 4 to 6 inches could be possible for us here, and lesser amounts as you go farther inland. One of the reasons for that is the track, again, as we showed you there at the beginning, goes farther westward, kind of skimming Louisiana and then pushing its way into East Texas. That may minimize the heavy rain that we see in Alabama and in Florida.
All right, they went to commercial. Now what we're looking at now is we're looking at the cells, so we can see exactly where they're going and where the worst part of these storms are going to be. But most of all, so I can check the MDR and see what we have coming next towards John. We got a cell spinning. It's doing a little dance around you. We got something after. Stays kind of weak. MDR looks all right for right now, John. Now this is Marco. After Marco comes in, he'll be bringing storms all the way from Florida all the way to North Carolina. It's going to feel up Marco. All right, Laura. Those storms are definitely going to turn, because this is where it's predicting to be more back where it was in the first place. Because before, it was in between Beaumont, not Baton Rouge, but Lafayette, kind of. It looks like it's going right back to where that originally wanted it to go. So. We update every 2 minutes. Right up northern Louisiana, right into Arkansas, just like before. That track has come back. And then Nana, let's see if we can get a cell out of Nana. All right, let's see where you came from. Oh, it came from the south. Nana came from over here. Floated across. Right there, had a big bright idea. And she wants to do something. Brightens for a minute, but it has no formation. It just hits at the last minute with something. It's looking like it's his name, you know, it's a Nana. Let's hopefully that gets weaker. All right, Sebastian, see you later, bro. But after that, I don't see any other storms going on from the Atlantic. Now let's go back to the power. We did thunderstorms. We did the winds, the marine weather. See, y'all hear that? Thunder. It's been going on for a while. These hurricane warnings are going to shift left, as well as the rainfall that they're expecting is anywhere from 3 to 5. That's going to shift left as well. They got to fix their diagrams, give them time. To get updates, make sure you go to my main channel on this one, or if Mimex, if you want to put the link in there for me, please. My main channel is on that channel, and that's the one I dedicate more time into. Believe it or not, I don't hardly sleep. Let this load up. There we go. And since we loaded it before, it's already ready. So this is a 10 meter, the impacts, the winds. And Marco, I don't get where they see in the tropical storm winds, because they all get lost. That's the heaviest part right there. Okay. It curves up by New Orleans, but it stays on edge for everywhere else. And this is light winds. Yeah. So I don't know where they talking about tropical storm winds from Marco. Not showing that damage. However, yeah, it still continues. So Laura, we noticed after it went through Cuba, calmed down a bit, and there's never any more green now, and she barely even has 80 with her. All the white is tropical storm strength. Oops, I'll just play it just so you can see though. It goes from 30s all the way to 40s. It depends if it's a brighter white. You'll notice. But I'm gonna play this so you can see where the impact's gonna be so far. They're back too. So after we check this out real quick. Thank you, Marin. Hey, Kayla. No, you're not late. Here's another spark of 80s. You're not late. Thanks, John. I appreciate you, man. If you have any questions, please ask. Now, these are the 50s. This orange, red right here. Well, orange. And then going away. And tropical storm winds. All this white, all the way up to Opelousas. This is going to be bad, too. It's just coming from midnight to 3 a.m. with all that. All right, they're back on. Let's go to them.
Here in just a little bit. All right, let's talk a little bit more about what happens here with Marco and with Laura, the latest cones. And I'm sure you've seen this, and you think, gosh, that is just the strangest thing. You're right. I don't think in the 17 years I've been here at the Weather Channel, I've ever seen overlapping forecast tracks like this before. The first one is Marco. That's this one. The second one is Laura. That comes in this direction. And they're likely to happen over the span of about 48 hours. That's it, just 2 days apart. So Marco is a 75-mile-per-hour Category 1 hurricane moving north-northwest at 13 miles per hour. Some of the convection has died down a little bit tonight, but that's not uncommon. And a lot of times you'll see nighttime expansion of the convection or the thunderstorm. So that's just something to keep an eye out for tonight, and it could be thunderstorms in the morning out ahead of the actual landfall. Hurricane warnings in effect here, Grand Isle and Homa. Hurricane watches in effect farther west and farther north, and tropical storm warnings do include New Orleans as well. And tropical storm watches, by the way, go up to Macomb, Mississippi, and then as far east as Mobile, Alabama. When you take a look at those cones again, you look at what that track for Laura is. It's a bigger cone. It's likely going to be a bigger hurricane, and it's hooking a right-hand turn here as it comes inland. But notice Wednesday evening what the forecast is. A 105-mile-per-hour Category 2. 111 miles per hour is a Category 3. And again, now we're talking 3 days away, so could there be a weaker or a stronger hurricane? Yes, that is possible, and I would urge you to prepare for at least a Category 3. This is kind of what the governor of Louisiana said just a few moments ago when he said, always prepare for a category higher than what's forecast. So that'd be a Category 3 right now. But I got to tell you, Laura looks pretty good on the satellite. Really a lot of thunderstorms that have blown up around the center, 60-mile-per-hour winds. It's increased in intensity here in the last few hours, and tropical storm warnings still remain in effect with a watch in effect there in Key West and the possibility that we could get some severe weather. Mike Seidel was talking about that, with the risk here of some squall lines that come through. Maybe very brief squall lines here. They should all be moving. I wouldn't think that flooding would be a very big issue for us here, but pretty prepared for, I'd say suboptimal weather for us tomorrow with a much better forecast going into Tuesday. The issue then becomes, once this gets down to the Gulf of Mexico, Alex, all bets are off, and Laura forecast to be a very formidable hurricane approaching the Gulf Coast.
Yeah, and a 1-2 punch for some of these communities, unfortunately, looking likely. We combine just the extremely unusual circumstance we have with these two storms with, of course, the ongoing pandemic. And it's just been a recipe for a problematic time, to say the least, when we talk about evacuations. They're trying to get people out. And you can see some of the traffic heading out of Grand Isle, Louisiana this afternoon. Earlier today, they had started their trek northward out of the problem areas. We've always recommended, or this year, we've always talked about the possibility of maybe sheltering with friends, family members. That way you're keeping the groups smaller. What we know about hurricane and sheltering is that a lot of times these shelters are just full of people. But during the time of COVID, that's not the best case scenario. So if you can, evacuate to a friend or a family member's home. That way you're reducing the amount of people around, and you're also reducing the strain on the responders and healthcare workers. Keep in mind, a lot of those who are the volunteers, the responders, are at that age that makes them more susceptible. Help your elderly family members, your neighbors, your friends. Make sure they have the supplies they need. If you're making a run, say, hey, can I grab you anything? And make sure they have a way to evacuate if they're supposed to. Many times we see people without a way to transport themselves out of harm's way. Also, contact your insurance agent ASAP to get that annual checkup. Obviously, too late with these storms, but if you're watching from a place like Florida or the Carolinas, I want you to check in.
Okay. Make sure we do that. All right. See enough of that. Might as well go regular radar, because you don't think we're going to see them yet in the Gulf real good with the next ride. I like them warnings. Yeah, all we would see would be this with the next ride. That's a nasty hail core right there. See? Tell me I'm tripping. Huh? Look at that nasty hail core. Just passed over my house, man. Talking about summer storm. Yeah, that's one heck of a summer storm right there. Small craft advisories. And these are red flag warnings. Flash flood warnings here. Yeah, red flags for all the... Oh, here we go. I gotta talk this one. Child abduction emergency. The following message is transmitted at the request of Montana Department of Justice. An Amber Alert has been issued for a white 1998 Dodge Dakota pickup. Montana license 720745 Alpha. Non-custodial father Andrew Warner and Haley Emerson abducted a 6-month-old baby boy, Lucas Warner. Andrew is reportedly bipolar and off medication. Any information, call Flathead County Sheriff at 406-758-5610. Thank you. Air quality alert in Denver. Yeah, if anybody's in that area, keep your eyes open. That's a serious thing. And I'll tell you what that is. He's bipolar, medicine, whatever. He's on antidepressants because his family's separated. I can imagine how that would rip you. But he don't have custody. Mom got custody, so you can't take the child, bro. Oh, was that a tornado warning or is that a marine statement? It's a marine statement. Just making sure. There's a lot of hail cores everywhere. It wouldn't surprise me. This is commercial, Daniel. How you doing, bro? Well, you can't see anything coming in yet. It has to pass this line right here. And instead of having live radar just spin around and only getting right here, make sure we check everybody's stuff. They'll be back on in a second. It'll be all right. See, look. They're back on already. The third storm? You're not going to see it on this one. This is live, but you're not going to see them. You can back up the video. I just did it. I did the 10-meter run of sustained winds, and I showed it to you. It comes over here by Corpus Christi. Gets up in the 40s. 10-meter run. All right, they're back on, people.
Time when everyone needs to begin preparing for these oncoming hurricanes. Remember, your life is far more valuable than your property. Your property can be replaced. Your life cannot.
When they say evacuate, that means leave.
My biggest fear this year is that we get in a situation where you've literally got 2 hurricanes that are threatening the United States that come in very close to each other. Maybe a couple of days, maybe 3-4 days. But that's my biggest fear about the 2020 season.
And unfortunately, we could be looking at our biggest fears realized as we have 2 systems set to make landfall, both as hurricanes this week. Hurricane Marco in the Gulf of Mexico, that's going to make landfall tomorrow. Then behind that right now over Cuba, we've got Tropical Storm Laura expected to become a hurricane, also making landfall on the Gulf Coast towards the middle part of the week. So I want to break down all of these weather stories for you. Of course, the tropics taking headlines. We've also got the fires out west. 2020 has been a difficult enough year with the pandemic, and unfortunately, we're seeing these natural weather events also making headlines right now. Forecast for Marco and for Laura brings both of these storms into the Gulf Coast, something we have never seen. You know, you've got basically 2 forecast cones making an X. The Gulf Coast, particularly Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, very much in play for these storms and the threats that they will bring. When we look at Laura's forecast, Laura anticipated to be a stronger storm than Marco, also a larger storm than Marco. So Marco, a smaller, likely making landfall as a Category 1 storm tomorrow. By midweek, we could be looking at a Category 2 hurricane, but I don't want you to just count on that because unfortunately with Laura, there are a lot of things that will be working for this storm to possibly strengthen and working against those of us watching it from the Gulf Coast. Warm Gulf of Mexico waters. We've got very favorable upper winds, very little in the way of shear. You know, shear has been kind of fighting Marco a bit. Not going to be the case with Laura. So we look at the forecast for the next few days. Moving over Cuba, depending on how much interaction it has with the island of Cuba, could determine what state it's in once it gets off. If it stays towards the southern edge of that cone, we could be looking at a stronger storm by the time it makes it into the Gulf. We have tropical storm warnings in effect, tropical storm watch as well for portions of the Florida Keys in relation to Laura. Hurricane Marco, a 75-mile-per-hour Category 1 hurricane. Again, this is a more compact storm, but still it's going to be offering up surge, heavy rainfall, and some strong winds by the time it moves onshore later on Monday, more likely than not, getting into the late evening hours. Hurricane warnings are up for portions of Louisiana, areas in the purple, and then we've got the hurricane watch in effect for New Orleans, also Slidell. So portions of southern Mississippi very much in play for some of the issues. A tropical storm warning is in effect for Biloxi and surrounding areas where we could be seeing a storm surge problem. When can you anticipate the onset of the tropical storm force winds? Or for portions of Louisiana, tomorrow morning is when that moves in. So really the time to prepare, Chris Bruin, for a place like New Orleans where you are is getting slimmer by the minute.
Yeah, so try and get everything done before sunset tonight, or certainly before the stores close. If you have to make those last-minute errands, maybe you forgot something, you want to go to the store really quickly, try and do so tonight, because tomorrow you're going to be adding that weather factor to the ordeal, and that can make it a lot more difficult. We will see a lot more rain tomorrow than what we saw today. The only thing today that we've noticed is a persistent breeze. It's pretty notable, out of the east at anywhere from 10 to 25 miles per hour. But it's been dry in New Orleans. A great evening, by the way, for those last minute preparations. Trying to get to the store, it's great. I mean, it actually feels nice in August in Louisiana. That's hard to do in the heat of summer. So certainly a welcome reprieve from the high humidity values, even though the humidity is still here. That tropical moisture will be fueling in by the time we wake up on your Monday. So here's what we can expect in New Orleans. You're going to be watching the showers pick up. We'll have some scattered thunderstorms perhaps through the mid-morning hours, and then as we get into the afternoon, you're going to notice a lot more persistent squally weather. Tropical storm force gusts, winds in excess of 40, 60 miles per hour, especially as we head through tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night, and then into the early morning hours of Tuesday. Remember, tropical storm warnings remain in effect until further notice. We're also under a hurricane watch here, and then of course those storm surge warnings at the coast, but not including here in New Orleans. A lot to cover here. That's just
All right, they go on a commercial, guys. Now let's run the model again. Yes, Kayla, you have a question. Make sure my mic's on. I've done that one. Yep, there's a commercial. Now this one, we didn't do wind gusts yet, because that's wanted to see the impacts, the sustained winds. But let's see the possibility of wind gusts, because Puerto Rico, yet the winds were northbound and they wasn't getting the impact winds. They were still getting wind gusts coming in from the south when the storm system moved directly over Puerto Rico. I mean, it literally formed up over Puerto Rico. So let that load up. It's right here in the middle. Wind gust loads up fast. It's already on 150. Well, we're going to go 384. We're going to go 16 days. Just keep in mind, after about 2 to 4 days, anything is variable. Is it going to turn to a Cat 3? Kayla, I believe it would. I mean, it's already, they're predicting 105 already, and they always downgrade it. Because earlier today, they saw the same thing I saw. These are government information and data that's put into here that we all look at. It's a bunch of files put together like a movie, and you get to just watch it like a movie. But each one has its predictability and its value of how much it is accurate. And once they get locked on, that one shows a little intensification at the end right there. Once they get locked on, it really isn't going to change. I mean, once there's no other islands in the way, and I did show rapid intensification. There's 97, this wind gust. I did show rapid intensification for about 8 hours. All right, here comes Marco. And the wind gusts that you're looking at in the greens are in the 20s. 30s is the orange. The darker shaded orange is the higher 30s. But it looks like everybody's getting a lot of 20s. Port Sulphur, you're going to be in the 30s. But then everybody's going to be in the 20s. This is all 20s you're looking at. I mean, no, it's like, oh, everything's covered. We're talking about 24 miles per hour wind gust. I mean, you have everything else to mixture with it. And that dissipates. And then when Laura comes in, more of an area will get this 30. All right, we got to just press play. That's kind of nasty. To tell you what you're looking at, the orange is 30s. The darker the color, the higher the number. You got 50s for red. You got 60s for pink. You got 70s for the purple. Maybe redo that. You have 80s for the blue. You have 90s for the they should let me. I gotta play it one more time. You got 90s for the yellow to the white, and then it's over 100. Give me a second. It's being petty, but it's all right. I'll move her. See, all that growth was in between those two flicks right there, those two shape files. So normally you wouldn't have seen that if you don't press play. And that's 102. I mean, you can see the colors. But it's 102 wind gust. So it is, still strong. And as the storm moves through, are they back? Trump's talking again. All the way from Beaumont to Baton Rouge. She is wide. I'm not following the green because the greens are 20s. This is 1 a.m. on the 27th. Starts losing intensity, but I did see a second breathing earlier. You should do a second breath of power right around here. See if it gets in. Purple did not come back up. That's a good thing. Before it did. So it did is weakening from traveling through. And just so you know, these winds, these are 50 miles an hour winds, and the pink is 60. I mean, this is all damaging winds. All right, now they're back on. Trump's off. I mean, no offense to Trump. I'm just saying, don't want to be political. We've already seen that.
About that. Let's talk about the really imminent threat. That is Marco. Hurricane Marco's one hurricane with 75-mile-per-hour winds. I'm going to show you the visible satellite. I'm going to put the Hurricane Center's track on there and show you little nuances that are happening tonight, because subtle differences, especially this close to a landfall, can make all the difference in the world. If you look at where the track at 5 o'clock was, 5 o'clock Eastern time, that little spinning hurricane symbol is where it was. And the forecast movement was north-northwest. But notice where the blowup of convection has happened now in the last couple of hours. It looks like the center is now formed about right in here between those two blowups of thunderstorms, okay? So the movement, if anything, has been now to the north, all right? So I'm going to keep that arrow on there. And again, I think it made perfect sense with the Hurricane Center forecast that was following that trajectory, and they even shifted the cone a little bit to the west with the most recent update. The unfortunate thing is, it looks like the hurricane's actually gone in this direction. We're already outside of the cone, just a couple of hours after they issued it. So I think at this point, we're probably going to have to, edge on the northern side of that cone. I think New Orleans, you're much more in play. I think with the next advisory that comes in, the track advisory at 11 o'clock, that cone could potentially shift a little bit farther to the north here, putting New Orleans more at play, putting coastal Mississippi more at play for higher storm surge. Again, at this point, I think we have to think about the northern edge of this cone. I think the southern edge might actually be out of play already shortly after issuance here, but this is what Mother Nature can do. Sometimes it can throw you loops here. There are the storm surge watches that are in effect. I would not at all be surprised if that might be extended a little bit farther east, maybe even over through Mobile Bay here for the storm surge warning, knowing what the track of Marco is doing right now. And potentially these numbers could go up, especially in this area right here. I think 1 to 3 feet Biloxi to Mobile could potentially be underdone. So just throwing it out there, folks, that especially on the east side of Marco, we could have more impact than what is initially thought right now. You take a look at where this thing is going with the model. That trend right there, if you look at where the low sits, is about right in there, which again, I think with this particular model might be right on, because the low could be sitting about right in there. That could be the center. And I think that might be, at least with this particular model, right on, spot on here, Alex. So again, little subtle differences can make a huge difference, but I would not be surprised to see New Orleans be more in play even tomorrow morning.
Absolutely. You know, we talk about a change in the path of 10 miles this way, 10 miles that way can mean more impacts for different communities.
This close already? Yeah.
Gosh, we got to watch that city very. We've got a lot of crews there, by the way, so we're going to be bringing you the situation in New Orleans as we go through the day tomorrow with plenty of our field meteorologists out there. Let's walk you through the winds with Marco, because obviously it's a small storm, but it's still going to be packing that wind punch, just a tinier core of some of those strongest winds. Greatest risk for the tropical storm force winds the farther south and east you go. I think for a place like New Orleans, looking at roughly a 50% chance of those strong winds. New Orleans kind of the dividing line. South of that, very likely that we're looking at wind gusts around 60 plus miles an hour. Outside of that zone where you see the yellow, that's where we have the 40 plus mile per hour gusts. The rain will be a big concern, though, for a place like New Orleans. Parts of southeastern Louisiana could be looking at a half foot of rain. So flooding and flash flooding will be a real threat with this system. Got to remember that, especially when we talk about New Orleans being, or a lot of the city being below sea level. Rain total forecast, it's not just Louisiana, but also portions of coastal Mississippi that could see.
Okay. They shortly die off when it gets into upper Arkansas. So what do y'all think about these storms? Let's see what Nana. I can spot her right there. Yeah, Nana gets up. Nana's gonna have powerful wind gusts. It was showing 42 sustained winds, 10 meters. So it's tropical storm. It has 52 above it, so it's not going to be a weak storm. So it definitely will at least be a tropical depression, tropical storm. But that's going to be Nana. Kenny, I know you just got here. Strengthens again. In the 50s, that's wind gusts. See, I can call it, man. You're going to be getting tropical storm winds, it looks like. And then die off. Good thing. A huge monster wave in the Atlantic. Well, we got it on wind gusts. We might as well look. Oh, this one? Laura? Laura's going to do something. Let's see what the other one that went over Puerto Rico, see if it had anything with it. Right there. Not seeing nothing impressive. Nope. Laura's gonna be nasty, but the islands wore her down. She went. You can see her circle right here, her center, right here, and she went straight across the lower end of the islands. She still tries, but there's no more green. There's barely even yellow when Laura comes in. She does grow to a little something, but not what she was. Oh yeah, that big boom. That's yeah. That's what gave Laura power, if you ask me. Because it boomed up with Laura and gave Laura speed. And then behind it we have dry air. And then behind that there's another potential, but nothing that sticks out. And there you go. It's getting right back up to hurricane force on the wind gusts. So Crowley, you're going to get some bad winds. Let me make sure that my tornado warnings is on with all these. Yes. All right. With all these storms going on, I'm going to make sure we don't miss anybody getting a tornado in them. All right, I'm going to put it on live radar and let it just watch that. And then we'll go to Weather Channel. That way we can see what's going on as it's coming. Live is better than the radar itself because you can see more. So but we'll see what's going on for a minute. See what changes. Tupelo, Mississippi. It's so weird watching the storms down here, and instead of seeing them build up and go south or build up and they go east, I'm sitting there watching these cells move west. That is so strange. Baton Rouge impacts. Hold on, let me go back. They're back on. We'll talk about it.
That is, it's incredibly important for everybody who could be in the pathway of these storms to constantly heed local warnings about what may be happening in your community, understanding that this is very swift moving and there could be rising water happening very quickly. And so it is essential for everybody who could be in the pathway of these storms to do everything you can to stay informed.
Back here in Key West as the sun sets, another glorious day here in Paradise. I know they were packed in over at Mallory Square. Looking at the sky, we've got a lot of cirrus up above that's coming away from Laura. Now, Laura's going to make its closest approach tomorrow. I did the mathematics, about 200 miles south of here, and then tomorrow evening about 200 miles west-southwest of here. So that's the closest it gets. And with tropical storm force sustained winds forecast to extend out about 140 miles, you can do the math right there and think about it that we're not going to get sustained tropical storm force winds. Thus, the Hurricane Center did not upgrade the tropical storm watch in the middle and lower Keys from Craig Key down to Key West to a warning. So we're just under a watch right now. We're going to get some gusty winds, some squally weather tomorrow and tomorrow evening, and then it'll be out of here. So everybody here is very happy about the status of Laura. It did not intensify because of the mountains, and it was not expected to intensify today. The other thing is the track has certainly changed over the past couple of days. Remember a few days ago, Mike, the cone included a lot of South and Central Florida, but everything has shifted south and, as we say, to the left and then to the west. So a lot of smiles on their faces here. Also, they missed out on Isaias. They didn't really miss out on it. They were happy about that. That one went by to our north and then went right up the east coast of Florida. So far so good, but we've got a long way to go for the hurricane season here in the Florida Keys, and they're no stranger to tropical storms and hurricanes. Mike?
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, Mike. Lucky so far, but we have all of September and October still to go, and we know a lot of things can happen in those 2 months for sure. Mike, thanks so much for the update. Yeah, not a great weather day for us tomorrow, but I don't think it's going to be extreme. Let's just put it that way. All right, let's bring you the latest on Laura here and give you the lay of the land. Here's Jamaica right here. This Long Island is Cuba, 60-mile-per-hour winds. This is a new advisory, by the way. The wind speeds did not change, so the new advisory has come in as of just a minute or two ago. It's now 30 miles to the west of Guantanamo, Cuba. Still the same speed, forward speed at 21 miles per hour, but it's got a good blow-up of convection. I got to tell you that the satellite presentation has been a lot more defined today than it was, you know, even yesterday, and then certainly from the day before. All right, so coming over Cuba, and then back over land, then back over Cuba again. By Tuesday morning, a 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm. So about 2 days from now, emerging out into the Gulf of Mexico. Nothing to slow it down here. This thing could really explode into a big-time hurricane here. Forecast to be by Wednesday evening, close to landfall, a very strong high-end Category 2 hurricane, and then maybe even strengthening all the way through landfall. Could we have a Category 3 or higher? I would not say that's off the table at all. It's very possible that could happen. All right, so Tuesday, 3 o'clock in the morning. There sits Marco, according to the European model forecast, and here comes Laura, a much more significant hurricane. And then coming into Louisiana, we think it could be back-to-back Louisiana hits within about 48 hours of each other. Heavy rain is definitely possible Tuesday through Wednesday with this system. And then watch it from there. Coming inland, and instead of going west, this one now curves off to the north, and then we think to the east. Could we get hit pretty hard in a Nashville, maybe a Frankfort, Kentucky? Look at where it sits. There's still a closed low there in Roanoke, Virginia. I think the wind field will expand here. I think power outages could be possible, especially interaction with high pressure could really expand the wind field here. If you recall, we have, I think it was Hurricane Ike that actually caused the highest number of power outages in Ohio history when it came in. So be prepared. I know we're talking a lot about the Gulf Coast, but be prepared for this track here and the possibility of some wind that really hammers us here and causes power outages all the way to the mid-Atlantic coast. Not to mention really heavy rain progged here Tuesday through Thursday with some spots here. Could be maybe in Alexandria, Louisiana, could be all the way up through Jackson and then Tupelo, Mississippi. We could see 5, 10 plus inches of rain. I think double-digit rains are certain in some locations. There's the GFS American model. Again, a lot of rain being pumped out of this thing right near the coastline here, including Beaumont, Port Arthur, near Lake Charles. 8 inches to a foot of rain, and these are very flood-prone locations. Again, that GFS model has a little bit farther west than the European model. But if you look at the probability of at least tropical storm force winds over the next 5 days, high likelihood here in Louisiana and Texas. And then even going, by the way, there's possibilities here up into even Arkansas. This is why we urge you to be prepared for power outages, gas up the generator, know how to use it, and be prepared to go without electricity for some time.
Yeah, that sucks. No electricity again already. It's terrible, man. Yeah, let's turn it off. I'm not liking that. Hi from Louisiana. Hi, Dwayne. How you doing? Yeah, it's not even close. Maybe we can see it off of Key West. I mean, I can do impact winds, but we just seen that. So anybody that wants to see the impact winds, make sure that you back up the stream. I just did that. And that was not showing it neither. Unreal. Flood warning issued for South Carolina. It's minor. 9 p.m. I'll update it if it gets any different. Same thing for North Carolina. You got advisory over Tennessee. All the storms. Yeah, they can only read the data like everybody else, Kenny. A lot of rain this year. All right, let's see where we're going to put you. We're going to do another model. The models update every few minutes. We'll do severe storms so we know what to expect in the next 12 hours. And we'll see if we can see Laura coming in even closer now. Let it load. A good Sunday. Nothing changed. Are they back on? We'll let this load.
In the tropics, we are tracking Hurricane Marco and Tropical Storm Laura, both on a collision course for back-to-back landfalls along the Gulf Coast. We lay out the potential impacts and when these two systems will roar ashore.
The state of Louisiana sings squarely in the crosshairs of both storms. We've got live coverage from the coastline as Marco closes in for a Monday strike with Laura right on its heels.
We had a nice afternoon and a really incredible evening for those last-minute preps as we batten down the hatches for what's going to be a long week ahead, not only here in New Orleans, but across the state of Louisiana. We're going to break down timing, impacts, and everything else you need to know for both Marco and Laura in Louisiana coming up. Mike.
And sunset here, Chris, in the Florida Keys. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel as we await the arrival of the squalls from Laura. We'll give you the timing and the impacts here in Key West in just a few minutes.
All right, we got our crews out there. Of course, expert analysis here in studio. I thank you so much for being with us for our special coverage of Hurricanes Marco, Tropical Storm Laura. I'm meteorologist Alex Wilson. Meteorologist Mike Bettis is in the lab. And of course, meteorologist Chris Bruin and Mike Seidel out there on location. We'll be checking in with them in just a moment. But I want to get you caught up on what we know right now regarding these two systems that'll likely make landfall this week. Here's what we know at this hour. Again, it is 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central Time. States of emergency have been declared for the state of Louisiana and 23 Texas counties. Right now, nearly 2 million people are under hurricane watches and warnings as Marco and Laura near the U.S. coast. Those warnings in effect for Marco right now. Now, in response, the Red Cross is working to mobilize recovery teams. Marco making landfall within the next day. I send it over to Mike Bettis in the lab. Mike, we've got areas under hurricane warnings right now, and this is just the first of two storms within perhaps 48 hours.
It's just crazy to think about, isn't it? And we do have the new advisory in, by the way. Nothing has changed with the wind speed. We still have a 75-mile-per-hour Category 1 hurricane. More or less a location change, 180 miles south-southeast of the mouth of the Mississippi here. Still chugging along here at 13 miles per hour. Hurricane Center says north-northwest movement here at 13 miles per hour, although I would make the argument it's maybe more north or even slightly east of north. At this point, pressure sits at 991 millibars. Water temperature certainly warm enough to support at least maintaining the storm, supporting at its current strength. I wouldn't anticipate any weakening between now and landfall. And again, you look at the warm sea surface temperatures, relatively low shear environment. I don't think anything is going to tear this thing apart between now and a landfall time. You'll take a look at the forecast strength here Monday evening, 75 miles an hour, making landfall. Tuesday early in the morning, now interaction with land could weaken this down to about a 60-mile-per-hour system. But notice where it's going over into Texas. I don't think it makes it all the way to San Antonio. I think it probably stops short of there, but may meander here in East Texas and bring us some periods of heavy rain. I think Houston, you could see that, and Galveston, maybe up towards all the way up towards, say, the Arklatex here, up towards Shreveport even. All right, hurricane warnings in effect here. That includes Grand Isle and Houma here. And hurricane watches, in effect, for Slidell and New Orleans. And I'm suspicious of whether or not we're going to get a hurricane warning here in New Orleans. I think we could potentially at 11 o'clock, just something to keep a watch for. Tropical storm warnings in red, tropical storm watches in yellow, extend as far east as Mobile, as far north as Macomb, Mississippi. Here's a look at the European model forecast. And I got to tell you, folks, the initial part of this, I think, is not all that accurate. I think it's going to end up being well east of this because it still had it on a fairly significant northwest track where the track in the last couple hours is clearly north. And so this might be a little bit too far west, but its trend is now to keep it out actually over the water with maybe a touch of Louisiana and then back out over the Gulf and then making way for Laura to come in right behind that. It's a very interesting track according to that model. You take a look at the GFS forecast model. Coming in a little bit farther to east, I think that might be a little bit more believable. Hitting potentially near Grand Isle, hugging the coastline here and then coming into Texas. And then Laura coming in behind that a little bit farther away than the European model had it. When do we anticipate the tropical storm force winds to approach? By Monday morning, they should already be touching coastal Louisiana and then through the day, through Louisiana, through Mississippi, Alabama. So just be ready for those winds to pick up throughout the day tomorrow, at times gusting to hurricane force here. And I think more and more I'm getting convinced here, Alex, that New Orleans is more on the table. I know that in the most recent track that we got from the Hurricane Center at the 5 o'clock Eastern Time update, New Orleans was not even in the cone. I'm really, really worried that that may go right back into the cone with the 11 o'clock advisory, knowing that the track, that at least the current track of the storm has gone a little bit more north.
Yeah, that is a concern, especially when you think about how many people we have to deal with there in the New Orleans area. So like you said, I think in our next advisory, we might see some alterations to that. We look at Marco, a smaller storm than we anticipate Laura to be. We've got that thunderstorm activity closer to the center. Now, this is going to be making its way into portions of Louisiana and along the coastline through the early part of the week, then followed by what we think will be bigger and perhaps stronger Laura. But let's walk you through Marco, because Marco, of course, first up in line, and those tropical storm force winds. The probability of those greatest along the Louisiana coastline. I think as we get towards a place like New Orleans, looking at about a 50% chance of the tropical storm force winds. Where could we see 60-mile-per-hour gusts? Farther south you are, the better bet for that. 40-plus mile-per-hour gusts from portions of Mississippi all the way over into East Texas. So some of those counties right along the Louisiana-Texas state line could be looking at some of those strong wind gusts. Now we take you to the storm surge warnings. Portions of Mississippi over into Louisiana are the areas that we think will experience the greatest push of water. Could be looking at 4 to 6 feet here along the southern side of Louisiana, 3 to 5 feet from portions of Mississippi over into Louisiana. So a concern for that water from the Gulf making it into some of these communities. Then we also talk about the rain coming down and how much water could be falling from the storm. We talk about southeast Louisiana, including the New Orleans metro area. And there's the possibility for a half-foot or more. That would, of course, lead to some flash flooding problems. Rainfall totals focused greatest in the southeastern part of Louisiana, but I think parts of the Florida Panhandle, southern Alabama, southern Mississippi also in play for some potentially flash flooding producing rain. Flooding into tomorrow morning, possible from portions of Louisiana over into the Florida Panhandle. I think a little greater risk as we go Monday and into early Tuesday. I want to check in with Chris Bruin right now. Chris is in New Orleans. Chris, we talk about the many threats on the table, but it is rain that looks to perhaps bring the biggest problem.
Yeah, Alex, and I think Mike brought up a good point. They're looking at the latest update from the National Hurricane Center, and they don't see New Orleans in the cone. We're still under that tropical storm force warning. Don't underestimate this storm. A lot of the models still want to bring some of the worst impacts in and around southeast Louisiana. That means we are in for a ride. tomorrow into Tuesday, so don't take that lightly. And I know the weather outside, I want to show you the sunset too. So finish up those preps tonight, and it can be deceiving because the weather right now, very tranquil here. But this time tomorrow, it's going to be a far different story. In fact, much earlier than that. By the morning, we're going to start noticing those windy squalls. And I think the governor is trying to hint at that. These updates have been kind of all over the place, kind of back and forth, and you need to prepare now. Take a listen to what the Louisiana governor said about not taking this storm lightly.
I want to be very clear at the outset. These storms are not to be taken lightly, especially because there are two of them, and they're going to impact so much of South Louisiana so close together.
All right, so finish up those preparations, and remember too, we're solely focusing right now on Marco, but we've got an even more potent hurricane down the line. Now I know New Orleans may not see the worst of that storm, but that's not off the table quite completely. We could see a shift farther east with Laura, and you're not really going to have a window in between. So you have to prepare now for really both storms, Mike, even though you may not have, as harsh of impacts in the end, but there's not going to be a lot of wiggle room in between, and we could have some serious flooding once Marco goes through, and a lot of power outages as well. So you kind of have to be battened down from really Houston to Mississippi and even Mobile for all aspects of the table.
At this point, Louisiana in particular, you're right, Chris. I don't think we have the luxury of time any longer. Maybe some other areas, farther west or farther east do, but I don't think in Louisiana we do. Thank you so much for that update in New Orleans. We're talking about it could be more and more in play. Very interested to see what the forecast track update will be at 11 o'clock because I think it might shift a little bit farther east and north here. There's a look at the future radar, and this is from the NAM model, and I think this may actually have a much better handle on it than the European model, which is a really good model, but it's a global model. And the NAM model, North American model, is a little bit more higher resolution and just less geography. It doesn't cover the whole globe, in essence, what I'm trying to say here. It's higher res, and the locations are a lot more fine-tuned here. That's where the low sits for us, the center of circulation, the eye, if you will. Monday at 10 a.m. could be coming in here to Louisiana at that time. Look at all the heavy rain and thunderstorms on the east side of that. And then sitting right about there at 6 p.m. on Monday, ready to hammer us in New Orleans, but a lot of thunderstorms on the east side in that right front quadrant, a push of water with a surge there. And this area highlighted in particular in the darkest red color could see severe weather and the possibility of tornadoes as well. A tour count of 3 for us. That will include west side of Mobile Bay, all of southern Mississippi, all of southeastern Louisiana, and yes, New Orleans and across Pontchartrain up toward Hammond is included in that as well. And then a westerly movement putting a low somewhere about here Tuesday morning. Still plenty of moisture flowing in here around that low in New Orleans. We're still not out of it by Tuesday morning. And then catch your breath. Here we go with Laura right on the heels of that. And look at this thing. That is the model prediction of what it will look like come Wednesday, 2 o'clock in the morning overnight. That's a monster. Well-defined eye in there. That thing will be intensifying the entire time and just bearing down on us here in Louisiana. It's a scary proposition, Alex. There's no question about that, with a 1-2 punch happening just 2 days apart.
Yeah, you look at that forecast and it really gives you pause what we could be looking at this week across portions of the Gulf. As Mike just showed us, it's Marco, then Laura that'll be moving through the Gulf Coast. Right now, Laura closer to Cuba today, offering up some really catastrophic rainfall, though, across Hispaniola, parts of the Dominican Republic and Haiti, dealing with some really significant and deadly flooding. Let's take a look at some new video coming in from Jamaica, yet another spot that has seen just torrential rainfall and, unfortunately, flooding from the rainfall of Laura. This is Kingston, Jamaica. We look at parts of the Caribbean this time of year, know that the threat is there, but still you hate to see it play out in these communities. So many people love to visit this time of year, obviously one of those times that you don't want to be out, but watching the situation for those people there across the islands, of course. So we talk about the risk of just flooding and how deadly that can be in places like Jamaica, in Cuba, in the Dominican Republic and Haiti, although things will begin to improve there. Center of the storm is to the south of Cuba, not far from Jamaica. So we're looking at 30 miles west of Guantanamo, 60-mile-per-hour winds with this one right now. depending on how much interaction we see Laura have with Cuba, could determine whether or not we're dealing with a stronger storm as it makes its way into the Gulf or a bit of a disrupted storm as it makes its way into the Gulf. So as Hurricane Center Director Ken Graham showed us, this follows the right-hand side of the cone. The storm's going to have a little more interaction with Cuba. We might be dealing with a weaker, more disrupted system. If it stays on the left side of the cone, more time over water. So we could actually be looking at a stronger Laura that makes its way into the Gulf than our forecast right now of a 65-mile-per-hour wind storm. In the meantime, we keep the tropical storm warnings going for portions of Cuba, Jamaica, still watching Haiti, portions of Turks and Caicos and Bahamas. That tropical storm watch is out for Key West. Then the storm makes its way into the Gulf, and then we watch for the possibility that we could be dealing with a very, very strengthening system. Very little wind shear, very warm waters, upper level winds are conducive to a strengthening storm. So, Mike, Ken Graham said the forecast there is for that Category 2 hurricane. We have to be aware of the possibility that we could be dealing with a stronger storm. Even the Louisiana governor speaking to that earlier.
So many things can happen, and we know sometimes in the Gulf of Mexico, rapid intensification can happen as well. All right, Tropical Storm Laura. This thing is on the move for us tonight. The next stop is Cuba. After that, it could be the lower Florida Keys here. Weather Channel meteorologist Mike Seidel in Key West for us right now. Mike, ultimately it comes down to this. Tomorrow's not going to be a great weather day in Key West, but we don't think it's going to be horrific necessarily.
No, by far it's going to be what we would term a bad beach day and not a good boating day, as we get some higher seas and chop as we see the wind picks up. But keep in mind, the closest right now that the center of Laura is forecast is about 200 miles from the south and then off to the west-southwest by tomorrow evening. What a sunset here in Key West. I mean, they don't come any prettier. Anyway, back to Laura. So as it does that closest pass, we're not likely to get tropical storm force winds. That's why the Hurricane Center didn't upgrade the middle and lower Keys to a warning. In fact, they dropped the watch for the upper Keys, including Key Largo. So what that means is we're going to have some squalls. They're going to rotate in. They're going to come in from the southeast and rotate in. Our winds will pick up. They've been running today east and southeast. At times we've had 20-mile-an-hour gusts. And some of those squalls will contain tropical storm force wind gust. That means 39 miles an hour or higher. And we may get some locally heavy rain for a while. But we're not going to get the rainfall totals they had across Hispaniola and right now in Cuba, because we're going to be so far from the center. Then it moves out into the Gulf of Mexico. And then strengthening is likely, and we're very concerned about Laura's next stop on the Gulf Coast. If you're in Texas and Louisiana, stay tuned. We've got more expert analysis on Laura. First things first, though, Marco heading towards Louisiana.
All right, guys. So what I'm going to do is, since the update needs to come out, I just did, for anybody that just came in the room, I'm put my channel in the chat. Subscribe to my main channel so you can see what's going on. But I'm going to do, for you, I'm going to do a model run so you can see Nana. That's in my title. And Nana shows tropical storm strength in the 40s. Hold on, let me hit this. Should load up quick because we already have it loaded already. Banana showed tropical storm strength in the 40s, headed for Texas. It came later in the month, around the 30th. That could be sooner, it could be later. It could go in the Pacific. So we have to wait and see. It's still too far away to really judge that. Now this is going to be the last model run, and I'm going to leave it so the video could be up for people looking for the latest updates so they can get accurate information. There goes Marco. The white is 30s. The bright white is 40s. The pink is in the 20s. I'll zoom in so you see. You're going to get the same effects going across Florida. It's the 20s. This is the damaging winds. This is 10 meters. It's sustained winds. And it's like Kenny said, it just softens it up. And this is where the power outage comes in. It's already soft. Now the wind can just blow the trees over. Yeah, update, please. Thank you. Now here's Laura. It's updating all your hurricane warnings and everything, which will shift to the left. It will go westward. The green disappeared from Laura. And her most intense moment is around 10 p.m. on the 26th. I'm showing sustained winds of 90 in that bright yellow-orange. The white is in the 40s. The orange is the 50s and 60s. So pay attention, because this stream's about to go off. This is going to be the last time you see this. And then the next update is way later tonight, before they update that. But just so you know, you got 50s and 60s, you got 40s in the white, very high 30s. And that's the path of Laura's going to do. So come in, do tropical storms all the way past Lake Charles, head towards Arkansas. Now, after Laura goes, then you have the Nana, which came down. It created down here, and then rolled across. And it gets strength and circulation right around the 30th. At 2 a.m. is when it was noticed. But there's Nana going towards Portland, San Antonio. Now these bursts that you see, I'll show you what the speed is of. I'm going to get a little bit closer so we can look more towards the impact. And it is getting stronger. I did see it right there. You can see the color change. It's in the high 40s now. And this is the Nana. Yep. Now it's almost 50, and it was darker than that, so I guarantee you that was 50s. But as it comes in, it looks like it weakens on impact. The white is tropical storm strength. I mean, all this is going to change. This is too far away. And it dies immediately. So that's the Nana. So believe me when I say I won't put it in the title if it's not true. Make sure you click subscribe to my second channel for updates. There will be another one on there. Psalms 43 before you go. It is Sunday. Judge me, O God, and do conduct my legal case against a nation not loyal. From the man of deception and unrighteousness, may you provide me with escape. For you are the God of my fortress. Why have you cast me off? Why do I walk about sad because of the oppression by the enemy? Send out your light and your truth. May these themselves lead me. May they bring me to your holy mountain and to your grand tabernacle. And I will come to the altar, O God, to God my exultant rejoicing. And I will laud you on the harp, O God, my God. Why are you in despair, O my soul? And why are you in boisterous with me? Wait for God, for I shall yet laud him as the grand salvation of my person and as my God. Amen. God bless you all tonight. I hope y'all stay safe and everything through these storms moving through. I will update as it comes out.